My feet were killing me, blisters forming with every step. But I had bigger problems than sore feet. Ji Xiaoying, my husband's cousin, was whining and tugging at Pei Yuanlin's sleeve, begging him to carry her bags on our cart. She kept calling him cousin in this sweet, pitiful voice, acting like she couldn't walk another step. I couldn't stand it. First of all, that cart was something I'd gotten for us. Second, if I let her take advantage, the whole Ji family would swarm in like leeches wanting the same treatment. I told her straight. My husband was still recovering from his injuries. He'd already been pulling the cart for half a day. How dare she ask more of him? Pei Shishir backed me up right away, calling Ji Xiaoying shameless for wanting a sick man to haul her stuff when she had two perfectly good brothers of her own. Ji Xiaoying turned red but kept pushing. She even had the nerve to claim that Yuanlin had once promised to take her as a concubine. My husband's eyes went wide. He'd never said any such thing, whether before or after his head injury. She actually said she was willing to be his concubine, gazing at him all lovingly. He looked at me with this helpless expression, like a lost puppy being cornered by a wolf. So I decided to play along. I told her, "Fine, you can be his concubine, but you'll have to obey me as the main wife, do all the cooking and laundry, and cut ties with the Ji family completely, since we've already broken relations with them." That shut her up fast. She realized I was just trying to trick her into being our servant. She backed away, suddenly claiming she didn't even like my husband anymore. "Who'd want him now?" she muttered and ran off with her bags. Good riddance. Then Yuanlin slowed his pace and walked beside me. He looked at me with that sincere, innocent face of his and said, "Wife, I will never take a concubine. You are my only wife." My face went hot. He's supposed to be simple-minded right now, but somehow those words sounded so clear and certain. Then my mother-in-law said I was the only daughter-in-law she'd ever accept. Shishir grabbed my arm and said I was the only sister-in-law she recognized. Even little Yunny chimed in, "We can lose Big Brother, but we can't lose sister-in-law." That last part made Yuanlin's eye twitch, but honestly, it made me smile. I smiled and said, "Yeah, I know. Honestly, I still can't figure out my own feelings. We've been together for over a month now. I wouldn't say I really like Pei Yuanlin, but I don't hate him either. The baby was an accident, but I want to keep it." My mother-in-law could tell. She's a smart woman. She knew we didn't marry for love. I just happened to be married into the Pei family right before the exile, and even if I'd tried to back out, the emperor probably wouldn't have let me go. She figured I'd only stayed with them this whole time out of respect for the old friendship between our families. Then she said something that surprised me. "Shushu, I know you and Yuanlin don't have real feelings for each other. I don't want to force you. Once we reach Lingnan and there are fewer eyes on us, I'll write up the divorce papers and set you free." My eyes lit up. That sounded great. But I didn't let it show too much. I just told her we could talk about it once we got there. Yuanlin looked upset, though, his own mother offering to help end his marriage.
Poor guy.
By noon, the sun was brutal. The air shimmered with heat. We found a shady hillside to rest and eat. I took out the leftover pig head meat from yesterday. With this weather, it'd go bad if we didn't eat it soon. Being pregnant made me feel queasy at the smell, but also starving at the same time. I made a cold salad out of it with seasonings and dried wild garlic from our supplies. It smelled amazing. Just as we were about to eat, I noticed Yuanlin had his back turned, fiddling with something. When he turned around, he held out a damp cloth. "Wife, wipe your sweat." Both my hands were full, flatbread in one, chopsticks in the other. Before I could put anything down, he pressed the cool cloth gently against my forehead. "Let me help you." I could feel 3 pairs of shocked eyes staring at us. I grabbed the cloth quickly. "I'll do it myself." He then offered to get one for his mother too, but she waved him off with a complicated look on her face, half touched that he cared for his wife, half amused that her son had forgotten about his own mom. The cloth was soaking wet, probably because his hands were still too weak to wring it out properly. But still, it was sweet. I thought about it and decided he's technically my husband. We had a proper wedding. I carried him to the bridal chamber myself, and now I'm carrying his child. Why shouldn't I enjoy a little care from him? He owes me, if anything. I've been looking after him and his family this whole time. Now that he's doing better, it's only fair he returns the favor. That calmed me right down. Later, I noticed little Yanni working on something behind my back. When I asked what he was doing, he blurted out without looking. Big brother wanted to make a toothbrush for sister-in-law, but his hands aren't working well, so I'm helping. Don't tell anyone. Then he turned and realized he'd been talking to me, not his sister. His face went pale. Busted. I thought it was sweet, actually. We'd been using crushed willow twigs to clean our teeth this whole journey. But I remembered I had proper toothbrushes packed away, wooden-handled ones from my medicine shop. I pretended to dig through my bags and pulled out 6 brand new ones. Yunny took one look and tossed aside the homemade one. Then he caught Yuanlin's glare and quickly picked it back up. Sister-in-law, I know it's ugly, but it's my brother's heart behind it. Once his hands heal, he'll make much better ones. He's really talented. I handed Yuanlin a new toothbrush. Use this from now on. Thank you, wife. He was a little disappointed about his failed project, but then brightened up. I could practically see him thinking, I'll brush myself clean and fresh so she won't find me gross anymore. I smiled, but as I turned away, the smile faded. I'd been thinking a lot this morning. My plan is this. Over the next 3 months, I'll find a way to clear the blood clot in Yuanlin's brain so he can recover his mind. I'll also use purified spirit water to help heal his wrist tendons. I won't start showing for 5 months, so the pregnancy stays secret until then. But knowing how the Emperor operates, always cutting the roots, the Pei family might not be safe even in Lingnan. Rather than living in constant fear with a baby, it might be better for me to take the child and live on my own. That's the plan for now. I just hope nothing changes it. After the rest, we set off again. Just as the sky started getting dark, thunder began rumbling in the distance. It started raining hard, not just rain, but hailstones the size of pigeon eggs. Everyone scrambled to find shelter. Yuanlin grabbed our cart and ran through the storm like a madman trying to protect our supplies. We spotted an inn up ahead and rushed inside. The owner said it was new, built by villagers from nearby. Prices were fair, 3 coins for a bed, 1 coin for a bun. We got 2 private rooms and cleaned up. But something felt off from the moment we walked in. I noticed sword marks on the floor, and the staff didn't look like ordinary country folk. They moved like trained fighters. I kept my guard up. At bedtime, the cook announced he was giving free porridge and eggs to all the women, saying he'd made a vow to a goddess after his grandson was born. Sure got excited. 3 portions for us 3 women. Enough for tomorrow's breakfast too. But I said no. We had our own food, and I didn't trust it. We stayed in our room. The other women ate happily. The G family women stuffed their faces. A skinny girl around Shirshir's age even saved her egg for her brother. When I went to use the outhouse with my mother-in-law, I noticed people moving around in the courtyard next to it. Using my earth-sensing ability, I discovered a hidden cave inside the mountain connected to that yard, with people living in it. I didn't think much of it at the time. Then, in the middle of the night, the women who ate that food started getting stomach aches and running to the outhouse one by one. Each one got knocked out and carried away. The kidnappers worked quietly and efficiently. Little Yanni woke up needing to pee. He slipped out without waking anyone. 2 men hiding in the shadows saw him and decided he was pretty enough to grab too. The moment he stepped out of the outhouse, they covered his mouth and knocked him out. When I heard him leave and he didn't come back, I knew something was wrong. I jumped up and ran into Yuanlin at the door. Wife, Yanni might have fallen into the outhouse pit. I'll go find him, he said with that innocent look on his face. His injuries had barely healed, and he was still acting simple-minded. I couldn't count on him for this. I told him to stay and watch over his mother and sister. He agreed, figuring I'd call our hidden guards for help. Instead, I went downstairs alone. Using my ability, I sank into the ground and came up inside the mountain cave. Moonlight filtered through a window, and I could see what was really going on. Young women, all tied up and gagged. The G sisters were there too. And Yun, already awake and struggling against his ropes, trying to scream through the cloth in his mouth. This one was a trap. Poor Yunny was tied up tight, wriggling on the ground like a worm. Then the fake innkeepers started moving a boulder that hid the cave entrance. They were planning to take everyone away. I had to act fast. I pulled out a fire extinguisher from my storage space and sprayed it right in their faces. While they couldn't see, I used my vine ability to beat them senseless. I dragged Yunny to a corner, untied him, and rushed back to the inn.
Thieves.
The staff are stealing our money, I shouted. That woke everyone up instantly. People started noticing their family members were missing. The officers grabbed their swords and charged out. While everyone was distracted, I quietly packed up the food the kidnappers had left in the kitchen, then brought Yunny to safety. Yuan Lin and my mother-in-law came rushing downstairs. When they saw Yunny was okay, the relief on their faces was huge. Yunny rubbed the back of his head and quietly swore to himself he'd train harder. The officers took down the traffickers easily. There were about 10 of them, and they'd already been roughed up by me. Once captured, they begged for mercy and offered 50 taels of silver to be let go. The Ji family actually thought this was a good deal. Ji Bin suggested everyone just take the money and move on. Officer Wang nearly lost it. Did you eat crap for dinner? What kind of nonsense is that? Even Yunny couldn't believe how shameless they were. Officer Chao refused the bribe without hesitation. He said they served the court and wouldn't make deals with criminals. Smart move. These were dangerous people who'd probably kill us later to silence witnesses. Chao and Wang thanked me for catching the danger early. If those women had been dragged into the mountains, they'd never have been found, and the officers would have lost their jobs or worse for losing prisoners. I played it down, saying I just noticed something was off. The rescued girls came to thank me one by one. The Ji sisters, though, not a word.
Typical.
I'd hidden some of the kitchen food for ourselves, but seeing how hungry those girls were, I quietly put it all back. Once it was confirmed safe, Chao had everything cooked up and shared. At dawn, we marched the criminals to the county office. The local constable was thrilled. They'd been hunting these traffickers for ages. He handed over about 10 taels as a reward. Chao split it among the officers on the spot, and even some of us prisoners got a share. I got 100 copper coins. Ji Xiaoying muttered something sour about me just being a tattletale, but the constable shut her down. Providing useful tips earned rewards in this county, plain and simple. I glanced at the wanted posters on the notice board outside the courthouse. Murderers, serial criminals, a notorious prowler who'd been attacking women across several counties, about 10 faces in all. I didn't pay too much attention. Chao told us to buy whatever supplies we needed quickly. Half an hour, then back on the road. Meanwhile, far away in the capital, things were stirring. The crown prince learned that Yuanlin was recovering and could walk again. He was furious. He thought his attack would finish Yuanlin for good. He slammed his fist on the table, crushing the pastries to dust. They'd held back from attacking us this past month because of something I'd said earlier, but the prince made it clear, Yuanlin must not arrive in Lingnan in one piece. A handsome man beside him calmly handed him tea. Relax, brother. His hands are ruined, he's no threat. And if you want revenge, there are plenty of ways. Back in the capital, the crown prince was plotting. He told his younger brother, the second prince, to handle Yuanlin. The plan was simple, disguise assassins as mountain bandits. If we died on the road, everyone would just call it bad luck. We had no idea any of this was coming. After restocking supplies, we kept walking. Over a month in, and we'd only covered a fifth of the journey. The farther we got from the capital, the wilder and more dangerous things became. That evening we reached a small village. We paid the village chief a little money to use an empty house, bought some firewood, and settled in to cook. My morning sickness was getting harder to hide. I'd feel the urge to throw up when I got hungry, but I kept it quiet. So far, nobody in the Pei family had noticed. I suggested egg and cured meat noodles for dinner. The hailstorm had gotten some of our flour wet, so I'd rolled it into dough balls. Perfect for noodles. I'd also traded a few coins for 30 eggs in the village. Yunny said he'd eat dirt if I told him to. Sure chased him around, threatening to smack him. The mood was light and warm. I liked that. Wangshi from the Ji family scoffed at our noodles, bragging they'd bought a whole chicken. But then a stray dog snatched their chicken right off the cutting board while Ji Bin went chasing after 2 coins he spotted in the dirt. Father and son ran after the dog screaming, but never caught it. They came back empty-handed. I glanced over, then went back to my noodles. Not my problem. Our dinner was delicious. Noodles with cured meat, green onions, and fried eggs. Everyone was happy. Afterward, I noticed my mother-in-law quietly sewing something. When I asked, she blushed and said it was something we'd need. Then Shirshir came back from washing dishes looking pale, rubbing her stomach. I understood right away. She was on her period, and my mother-in-law was making cloth pads. I'd been waiting for the right moment to share something. Back near the capital, there were too many eyes around, and I hadn't fully trusted the Pei family yet. But now I felt safe enough. I pulled out sanitary pads from my supplies and showed them how to use them. I told them they were made with reed fluff and thin cotton, something my maid and I had learned from a village woman. They believed me. I also had my mother-in-law sew a pair of modern-style underwear to hold the pads in place. She worked fast and made one quickly. Shirshir tried it and came back blushing but excited. Sister-in-law, it really works. But will it leak? It won't, I assured her. Then I gave her a painkiller for her cramps. She swallowed it without question. To cover my own tracks, I pretended I was also having my period, timed close to Shirshir's so I wouldn't forget and slip up later. The real reason was to hide my pregnancy. If everyone thought I was menstruating, nobody would suspect I was carrying a baby. I wasn't worried about Shirshir telling anyone. This kind of thing was private, between women. Meanwhile, Yunny pestered Yuanlin about what we were whispering about. Yuanlin just ruffled his hair and told him not to eavesdrop. And the Ji family? They went to complain to the village chief about the dog that stole their chicken. Turns out the dog wasn't even from the village. It had been stealing from the locals too. They spent money on a chicken and didn't get a single bite. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The Ji family's chicken drama got worse. The village chief showed up with his people carrying sickles and hoes, furious at the Ji family for blaming them. Officer Chow had to smooth things over, apologizing and telling the Ji family to shut up. They couldn't prove anything, so they took out their frustration on Ji Xiaoying, blaming her for not chasing the dog away. Her punishment? No dinner. She ended up eating a cold, rock-hard bun while watching everyone else eat. It gave her a stomachache, and she had to run to the outhouse in the middle of the night. I didn't know the details of what happened next until much later, but that night, Ji Xiaoying ran into one of the guards on patrol. He had meat jerky. She was starving. One look between them, and they both understood. She followed him into the shadows and gave herself to him in exchange for food and protection on the road. Then, he brought another guard. She had no choice. Afterward, she walked back to her room clutching a few coins, burning with shame, and somehow blaming me for all of it. In her mind, if I'd just shared our food with her, she wouldn't have fallen so low. I knew nothing about any of this. Every night, I was busy tending to the herb garden in my storage space, pulling out medicines and supplies, then organizing everything so it could regenerate. It was like having a copying machine for rice, flour, oil, and medicine. As long as I emptied a spot, it would slowly refill. That night it rained. The villager's house had no beds, just wooden boards with straw on top. I shared a blanket with Yuanlin. As it got cold, I instinctively pressed closer to him, and he wrapped his arm around me. Then I got too hot and kicked the blanket off. He pulled it back. I shoved him away. He sighed and adjusted things until I settled down. Apparently, while I was sleeping, he snuck a little kiss on my forehead. I didn't feel a thing. When I woke up the next morning, I found my fingers laced through his. Our hands were locked together. I turned my head and there he was, that ridiculously handsome face inches away, dark eyes pulling me in like a whirlpool. "Good morning, wife." His voice was low and warm, still lazy from sleep. I froze for a solid 30 seconds. Then I yanked my hand back, annoyed at myself. How was I getting flustered by a man whose mind was basically that of a 6-year-old? Every transmigrated heroine before me would be ashamed. But then my eyes drifted down to his sharp jaw, his throat, and the bit of chest showing through his loose shirt. Ahem. You must be hungry. I'll go make breakfast. I scrambled up, straightening my clothes and pretending nothing happened. Behind me, Yuanlin glanced down at himself and a sly little smile curved his lips. Like he'd just figured something out. On my way to the kitchen, I ran into Ji Xiaoying. She glared at me with pure hatred, like I'd dug up her ancestors' graves. I had absolutely no idea what her problem was. When I saw Ji Xiaoying glaring at me that morning, I gave her my biggest, brightest smile. Watching her face darken made my whole day better. That's how you deal with enemies. Be happy when they're miserable. I fought through my morning sickness while brushing my teeth, secretly drinking some spirit water, and taking a folic acid pill. Yanni had already gotten the fire going. He'd learned fast. I steamed some eggs and made egg drop soup for breakfast. When the Ji family saw us eating so well, their jealousy was obvious. Old Lady Lu's burnt pancakes and watery soup with barely visible egg didn't compare. Over breakfast, my mother-in-law started telling stories about Yuanlin as a kid. Apparently he was quiet and a bit odd even back then. He'd begged for a little brother to practice sword fighting with. When Shirshir was born instead, he threw away all her little dresses, bought boys' clothes, drew a mustache on her face, and told everyone she was his brother. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Yanni said he was just glad he was born later, though he still got plenty of beatings from his big brother growing up. Yuanlin kept his head down, shoveling food into his mouth, pretending not to hear any of this. I caught him sneaking nervous glances at me, probably wondering if I thought less of him. On the road that day, I noticed Ji Xiaoying looking pale and weak, but oddly, she wasn't getting whipped anymore. 2 guards hovered near her, and one even slipped her a meat bun when she went to relieve herself. Shirshir saw it too. When Ji Xiaoying caught her looking and said, "Jealous?" Shirshir just rolled her eyes and walked away. That evening, there was no village or inn in sight, so we camped outdoors. Some prisoners wanted to search the nearby mountain for herbs to sell. Officer Wang asked my opinion first. I told them there might be some, but nothing worth much. They could go if they wanted, but should be careful. Instead of joining them, I walked downstream along a small creek. I started flipping over rocks and found little crabs everywhere. Then I reached a pool full of river shrimp and rockfish, completely untouched. Nobody had ever fished here. I used my vine ability to make a net and swept the whole pool. Must have been 20 or 30 pounds of fish and shrimp. I stored the best ones in the fish pond inside my storage space, then tossed 3 grass carp into the pool to replace what I'd taken. I speared one big fish with a sharpened stick and headed back, playing it casual. I told Officer Wang about the pool, and everyone rushed down to try their luck. I'd left enough for them to find something. Wangshi from the Ji family watched all this with sour eyes. She complained to her mother-in-law, "Look at that shameless girl, finding good things and telling strangers instead of her own family. As if the Ji clan had ever been anything but parasites to us. The Ji family just couldn't keep their mouths shut." Old Lady Lu compared me to a brothel singer. Wangshi said I was too friendly with other men. Ji Xiaoying even hinted that Yuanlin might end up raising someone else's baby. They said it just loud enough for us to hear, but kept their distance from the guards so they wouldn't get whipped for it. My mother-in-law was furious and told them off. She squeezed my hand and told me to ignore them. But I didn't want to ignore them. Not this time. I smiled, let go of her hand, and walked straight toward the Ji family. They thought I wouldn't dare do anything with their 3 men around. When people insult me, I said calmly, I get angry. And when I get angry, I go a little crazy. Then I kicked their cooking pot over. Their entire dinner, a whole pot of porridge, spilled onto the ground. Old Lady Lu screamed like a banshee. The 2 Ji brothers lunged at me. My mother-in-law sent Yanni to help, but honestly, I didn't need it. I nailed Ji Hao right between the legs with a perfect kick. When Ji Hum grabbed at me, I flipped him over my shoulder and popped his arm out of its socket. Then Ji Bin came swinging his fists and I grabbed the fallen pot and smashed it right on his head. All 3 men ended up on the ground, groaning. Yun arrived waving a fire poker, looking around confused. There was nobody left to fight. Yuanlin stared at me in shock. I could tell he was impressed but also puzzled. He'd checked and knew I didn't have any martial arts inner energy. What he didn't know was that my fighting skills came from self-defense classes in my previous life, plus my special abilities giving me an edge. The guards came over to see what the noise was about. Old Lady Lu begged them to punish me, but the officer just shrugged. Family business. Not our problem. If you want to settle it, fight it out. Just don't kill each other. We've got road to cover tomorrow. I looked at the Ji family. Want to keep talking? I can knock your teeth out next. Ji Xiaoying stammered something about me being a crazy woman. Wangshe demanded I pay for their ruined dinner. No, I said, arms crossed. If you don't like it, fight me. Yanni jumped in behind me, twirling his fire poker like a spear. He actually looked pretty good. Old Lady Lu backed down and only asked me to fix Ji Heng's dislocated shoulder. Before I could respond, Yuanlin strolled over with a goofy grin, grabbed Ji Heng's arm, and popped it back in with a loud crack. Ji Heng screamed for a solid 30 seconds. No need to thank me, Yuanlin said cheerfully. Next time it'll cost you, though. That's right, I added, patting his shoulder. Bone setting services. 10 coins per fix. Family discount this time, consider it free. I told him he did great and promised to cook him fish for dinner. Back at our spot, I made sour vegetable fish stew with rice. The smell carried across the whole camp. The officers came back from the creek with fish and crabs, thanking me for the tip. When they noticed the Ji family's mess, they took one look and decided they didn't want to know. Old Lady Lu sat there fuming, then took her anger out on poor Wushi for not bringing back enough crabs. Wushi had been down at the creek alone with her 2 girls, no help from the Ji men, who just sat around waiting to be fed. Little Ji Panner stared at our fish and swallowed hard. Old Lady Lu followed her gaze toward our dinner, and I could practically see the scheming wheels turning in her head. Old Lady Lu sent the 2 Ji sisters over again with empty bowls, hoping their pitiful faces would guilt us into sharing our fish. They stood there silently, biting their chopsticks, staring at the pot, and then at my mother-in-law. I kept my mouth shut. This was her family, her call to make. But if she gave away food I'd worked to get, I was going to have a problem. My mother-in-law held firm this time. She told them she couldn't help and to go ask their own parents. Sure told them off, and the younger ones started crying on cue. Classic move. But it didn't work. My mother-in-law kept eating and didn't budge. She'd learned. Being soft once or twice was kindness. Any more than that, and the Ji family would keep using those girls as tools to squeeze us dry. The sisters walked back with empty bowls. Wangshe immediately started running her mouth, calling us heartless for not even sharing soup with children. I'd had enough. I stood up and said sweetly, "Oh, you're right. Fish soup isn't good enough for our dear cousins. We saved something special for them. They just need to wait." Yanni caught on right away. "Yeah, we're saving the fish bones for you. Hold on, let me finish eating first. Last time they'd given us chicken butts. So we'd return the favor with fish bones. Fair trade." Wangshe opened her mouth to argue, but I stood up. The color drained from her face, and she swallowed whatever she was going to say. Ji Xiaoying tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered to stop. Smart girl, she'd learned I hit back. Old Lady Lu took her frustration out on poor Wushi and her daughters instead. They'd brought back the crabs, but only got the 2 smallest ones to eat. The rest went to the favored family members. A grandmother from another exile family watched and shook her head. That heartless old woman, treating her own daughter-in-law and granddaughters like that. She'll pay for it someday. Her own family shared everything equally, her grandchildren offering her crab legs, her giving her extra porridge to the kids. She was the same kind old lady who'd given me eggs early on, back when I first started teaching people to find herbs. That night, by the campfire, I treated Yuanlin's wounds for what felt like the last time. Everything had finally healed. His headaches were less frequent too. Then he pulled his move. "Wife, my hand hurts. My head hurts. Can you rub them for me?" He just wanted to be close to me. I knew it, but looking at that face, I couldn't say no. I agreed, and he immediately plopped his head onto my lap like a giant cat wanting to be petted. I massaged his head and hands for about 15 minutes. I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that this silly, clingy man was supposedly the fearsome war god everyone once feared on the battlefield. Then he grabbed my hand, looked up at me, and said, "Wife, I really like you." Before I could react, he kissed me, right on the lips. Just like that, bold as daylight. I grabbed his ear and twisted it. What do you think you're doing? Behave yourself. I glanced around frantically. Thankfully, the rest of the family had their backs turned, drying laundry by the fire. Yuanlin pointed at a married couple nearby. Uncle Dazhuang kisses his wife like that. And you're my wife too, right? I couldn't really argue with him. We were married. We'd already done far more than kiss. So I let it go and pulled my hand back. No point arguing with a fool. What I didn't realize was that Yuanlin had been carefully watching my reaction. He leaned closer. Are you upset? Want to kiss me back? That would make it fair. I glared at him. Don't think I won't. His eyes sparkled with a teasing look like he was daring me. And somehow, maybe out of pride, maybe because his lips really did look nice, I grabbed his chin, checked that nobody was looking, and kissed him. His eyes went wide for a second, then a smug little smile spread across his face. I'd been tricked by a man pretending to be stupid. I smacked my own forehead. What was wrong with me? Falling for the oldest trick in the book, from someone with the mental age of a 6-year-old. Pathetic. He leaned in and gently blew on my forehead. Does your head hurt too? Let me help. My skin tingled like electricity. I fled to make steamed buns, my face burning. Sure noticed the blush when I appeared beside her, but just smiled knowingly. What I didn't know is that the whole family had been deliberately turning their backs whenever Yuanlin and I were together, giving us privacy on purpose. After my outburst against the Ji family, they stayed quiet for 3 solid days. Ji Xiaoying had her guards secretly feeding her, so she was doing fine. That afternoon, we reached a wooded area where I spotted tea fruit trees everywhere. The fruits could be pressed into cooking oil, about 20 pounds of oil from 100 pounds of seeds. With oil costing 2 or 3 taels of silver, this was basically free money lying on the ground. The officers agreed to let everyone stop and gather. Each family collected 2 or 3 sacks full. We got 4, plus I secretly stashed a bunch more in my storage space. We spent the evening cracking shells and sorting seeds by firelight. That night, I woke up drenched in sweat. Yuanlin was half asleep beside me, still fanning me with a woven grass fan. Sweet, but it wasn't just the campfire making things hot. The air smelled wrong. I looked up and my blood ran cold. Wildfire. Rolling toward us like a dragon. Wake up. Mountain fire. It's coming this way. Everyone scrambled. Chao ordered us to retreat, but after a few minutes of running, we saw fire behind us too. I used my ability to sense the ground and confirmed it. The fire behind us had been set deliberately. Someone wanted us dead. They'd started a fire to trap us, making it look like an accident. They didn't care about killing over 100 people, including 30-plus government officers, just to get the Pei family. The people in power were truly ruthless. Everyone panicked. We were surrounded by forest, nowhere to hide. If the flames didn't get us, the smoke would. I pressed my lips together and spoke up. No. There's still one way out. Where's the way out? Everyone screamed. The Ji family shoved through the crowd to get near me, terrified I'd escape without them. Go back to the valley we camped in. There's water there, it's our only chance. Ji Xiaoying exploded. That's your plan? That tiny pond? You're leading us to our deaths. Others agreed. The pond was shallow, barely chest deep at its deepest, and way too small for 90 people. Do we have another choice? I kept my voice firm. Soak your clothes, clear the grass around you, cover yourselves with wet fabric, and press wet cloths over your nose and mouth. That's how we survive this. Officer Chao backed me up. Nobody had forced anyone to pick tea fruits. Blaming me was pointless. He ordered everyone to do as I said. We ran back to the valley. People threw themselves into the pond and soaked everything they could. The Ji family claimed the best spot in the water and blocked everyone else, guarding their valuables stuffed into rock crevices. Typical. I didn't take my family to that pond. Trees surrounded it on all sides. Once those caught fire, being in the water wouldn't help much either. Officer Gooden mentioned he'd found a cave nearby, probably left by whoever used to tend the tea trees. The officers headed there. I gave Chao one of our quilts to soak and use as a smoke barrier. Some families couldn't bear to abandon their food supplies. Old Lady Zhang was crying over hers. I told everyone to dig holes and bury what they could. Secretly, I used my earth ability to loosen the soil so they could dig faster. Yanni and Shirshir started clearing grass and digging alongside me. Then the Pei family's hidden guards appeared, 20 of them, singed and burned from fighting through the flames. Their leader, Shadow 9, wanted us to grab Yuanlin and my mother-in-law and try to break through the fire. I shook my head. Even if you get us past the flames, there are people waiting outside to finish us off. And if you die trying, we're still trapped. That silenced them. I sent them to search for caves instead. While no one was watching, I used my ability to carve a cave into the hillside. Shadow 9 found it and called everyone over. I grabbed the family and our soaked quilts and rushed inside. I secretly moved the buried supplies into my storage space too. Other exiles saw us and begged to come in, but the cave was too small. I told them to search nearby for more holes or cellars. Then I secretly dug a second smaller cave not far away. Maintaining 2 caves with my power was my limit. I couldn't help anyone else. The fire arrived. Smoke poured in thick and choking. The guards took turns pressing the wet quilt against the cave entrance. I quietly connected the air from my herb garden space into the cave to keep the oxygen flowing. Outside, I could hear the roar of flames, animals stampeding and screaming from the pond. Wild animals, even a tiger, had rushed to the water for safety, trampling and attacking the people already there. The G family was right in the middle of it. Time crawled. Between holding 2 caves together with my power, keeping air flowing, and the pregnancy, I started feeling dizzy and nauseous. Then Yuanlin's voice came through the darkness, gentle and steady. "Shoo shoo, drink some water." He pressed the water pouch to my lips. His calm somehow made me feel safe. I took a breath, drank, and let go of the second cave. I couldn't maintain both anymore. I had to focus on keeping us alive. I checked the soil around the second cave I'd made. It was stable enough not to collapse anytime soon. I'd done what I could for those people. I needed to save my energy for whatever came next. The heat inside our cave was unbearable. It felt like being steamed alive. Shirshir got dizzy from the thin air, and I gave her water, telling her to breathe slowly. Yun kept shaking his mother's arm to stop her from dozing off. Falling asleep in low oxygen could be deadly. Hours crawled by. Outside, the G family screamed and cried. Our guard stood watch at the cave entrance while I leaned against Yuanlin's shoulder, drifting in and out of consciousness. Near dawn, I sensed the temperature dropping. My plan ability could feel it. The fire had burned past us. We pushed the quilt aside and stepped out into a blackened, smoky world. The air was thick with ash and hard to breathe, but we were alive. Chao and his officers stumbled out of their cave coughing and vomiting. They'd had it much worse without my air supply trick. The people from the pond crawled out covered in mud, some with bloody gashes and bite wounds from wild animals that had charged into the water seeking refuge. Their skin was red and cracked from the heat. Chao ordered a head count. Everyone rushed to dig up their buried supplies. Yunni ran to our spot, but before he got there, we heard shouting. Someone had caught the G family red-handed, digging up another family's things. Jibin stammered that it was a mistake, that the smoke blinded them. But I pointed out that the G family had taken their own valuables to the pond. They weren't confused. They tried to steal our stuff first, found nothing because I'd moved it into my space, and then went after someone else's. The other family beat G hung up again. Someone called the G family thieves with bad blood, and old lady Lu nearly lost her voice screaming back. While everyone was distracted, I crouched down and quietly transferred our supplies back from my storage space into the hole. Yunni dug them up moments later, thrilled. The G family stared with green eyes. They dug that exact spot earlier and found nothing. The hidden guards slipped away separately so the officers wouldn't get suspicious. We couldn't go forward. The fire was still burning ahead, so Chao ordered us to head back and find shelter. 3 exiles had died. All loners who'd tried to use the chaos to escape. 1 burned, 1 suffocated, 1 torn apart by wild animals. We started walking through the smoking ruins. Then I felt people approaching. Yuanlin sensed it too. His face went hard. Officer Gooden spotted figures through the haze and got excited, thinking rescuers had come. Then an arrow sliced through the air, barely missing him as Wang pushed him aside. Assassins. They'd set the fire and waited outside to finish whoever survived. Then Ji Hao did something unforgivable. He pointed at us and screamed, "The Pei family is over there." Arrows flew our way. But they weren't only targeting us, they shot at everyone. Our hidden guards fought back from the shadows. I shouted to Chao for his bow and arrows. He and Wang tossed them over without hesitation. Yunni and I started shooting back. Under cover of the thick smoke, I used my vine ability to take the assassins down one by one. The assassins were dead, but the Ji family started stirring up trouble immediately. This fire was set to kill the Pei family. We're all being dragged down with them. Wang Shi screamed, her mud-caked face showing nothing but hateful red eyes. Ji Hing backed her up, calling the fire suspicious and pointing fingers at us. Other exiles joined in, blaming us for putting everyone in danger. My mother-in-law tried to defend us, but I cut in. If someone wants us dead badly enough to start a wildfire, you think they'd leave witnesses? They'd kill all of you too. And if I hadn't told you how to survive, you'd already be ashes. Chao rubbed his temples and told everyone to shut up and move. I suggested we split from the group to draw the killers away. Ji Bin immediately accused us of trying to escape. The officers surrounded us with weapons drawn. I sighed. These people's brains were fried from smoke. I offered a compromise. My mother-in-law and the others would stay with the group while Yuan Lin and I led the assassins in another direction. Secretly, I was already thinking this could be my chance to slip away with the baby eventually. But not yet. I wasn't prepared enough. Chao reminded me it was his duty to deliver us safely. Yuan Lin grabbed my hand and insisted on coming. After some arguing, we agreed. Yuan Lin and I would go one way, everyone else another. We'd meet up at a midpoint between here and the last village. Once we were away from the group, the hidden guards appeared. I pushed Yuan Lin toward Shadow 9 and told them to protect him. Then I pulled out a needle and jabbed Yuan Lin in the neck. He blinked once. Then his eyes closed and he crumpled. "What are you doing?" Shadow 9 panicked. "He's safer unconscious. A simple-minded man in a battle is a liability. Hide him and get ready to fight." Shadow 9 exchanged a look with his partner. They both knew Yuan Lin wasn't actually stupid, but they kept quiet. They were probably thinking he'd be furious when he woke up, which meant they'd better keep me alive or face his wrath. The injured guards arrived. I asked for their water pouches, saying I'd add an energy medicine. Really, I mixed in spirit spring water for my space. They drank it and visibly perked up. Minutes later, over 100 assassins swarmed in. We had 50 guards, half of them wounded. The Pei family's got a tail after all. "Kill them and collect the bounty," the assassin shouted. Shadow 9 told me to take Yuan Lin and run. But running would never end this. We needed to finish them. While the guards fought head-on, I hid behind trees playing the helpless woman. But from the shadows, I shot arrows into their backs, tripped them with vines from my ability, and used tranquilizer darts on anyone who got close. One assassin charged straight at me, trying to grab me as a hostage. I threw pest-killing powder in his face, blinding him, then picked up a fallen sword and swung, killing someone. As a modern person, crossing that line was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But if I hesitated, I'd die. This wasn't my old world. Here, the strong survived. I had no choice. With me sabotaging them from the shadows, the guards cut through the assassins fast. Their leader ordered a retreat, but I called out, "Keep one alive. Kill the rest." Shadow 9 nodded grimly and led the final sweep. I stood there with a bloody sword, trying to look composed, but my hands were shaking. That's when Yuan Lin woke up. He saw me standing there, sword dripping, smoke swirling around me, and his eyes locked on. Then he noticed the trembling. He walked over, wrapped his arms around me, and gently took the sword from my hand. It dropped into the ash with a dull thud. I collapsed against his chest. All my strength was gone. "I killed people," I whispered. "Several of them. Beating up traffickers was one thing. Actually ending lives, that was a first. And it hit me all at once. In my old life, I'd been taught that every life was precious and no one had the right to take it. Now here I was, having killed people with my own hands. I knew it was necessary, but I'm still just an ordinary person inside. The fear and guilt hit me hard. Yuanlin held me and said quietly, "They deserve to die." His voice was gentle, full of concern. Then I noticed something. His reaction seemed too mature, too aware for a man with a child's mind. I looked up at his face suspiciously. He caught himself instantly. "Shoo shoo, don't be scared. Mama always said bad people deserve to die." Just like that, he was back to sounding like a kid. My suspicion faded. He turned to the guards with wide, innocent eyes. "You heroes are so amazing. All the bad guys are dead." Shadow 9 nearly tripped over his own feet hearing the fearsome war god talk like a kindergartner. The guards knew something was off about the fight too. They weren't that strong. They could tell someone had been helping them from the shadows. But a warning look from Yuanlin kept them quiet. I told them to clean up, search for clues, and interrogate the 3 prisoners they'd kept alive. Then I grabbed Yuanlin's hand and headed back. On the way down, I heard faint squealing from a dry ditch. We found 2 wild pigs, battered and mud-covered, huddled over 6 piglets. One pig had a branch through its belly. I saw opportunity. I carved off 2 big legs from the dead pig to carry back. Then when Yuanlin walked ahead, I secretly stashed all 6 piglets into my storage space. Back at camp, everyone was lying on the grass, gasping and crying with relief. Shirshir had been watching the horizon anxiously. My mother-in-law was praying with clasped hands. Wang Shi, of course, was hoping out loud that we were dead. Yunny pelted her in the mouth with a rock and started throwing more. Before a full fight broke out, someone shouted. They'd spotted us coming. Everyone stared at the 2 massive pig legs we were carrying. "Weren't you supposed to be running from assassins? Where'd you get pork?" I put on my most innocent face and spun a story. Assassins? Oh, that was a misunderstanding. Those men were just runaway bandits trying to cause chaos, so they could escape. We ran into some forest outlaws who were hunting during the fire. They let us go when they heard we'd accidentally dealt with the traitors. Even gave us these pig legs. People looked skeptical, but chose to believe it. After all, if real assassins had wanted just the Pei family, they wouldn't have shot at everyone. Then I mentioned we'd passed 2 whole dead wild pigs on the way back. Everyone's eyes went wide. After losing supplies in the fire, free meat was exactly what people needed. Chao sent Wang with 10 men to check it out. He'd also spotted some injured deer on the mountainside. I'd turned a nightmare into a feast. Sometimes that's all you can do. I drew a map in the dirt showing where the wild pigs were, and Officer Wang took 10 men to go check. Some exiles volunteered to join them, the ones who'd trusted me before and benefited from it. Wang sure tried to scare people off, saying I might be using them as shields, but Wang ignored her and left. We walked back until we found a small creek. The sight of running water made everyone feel like survival was actually possible. My mother-in-law rushed over with tear-streaked lines cutting through the soot on her face. She hugged me tight, full of guilt. Shirshir and Yunny crowded around with red eyes. Then the brothers realized we had almost nothing left. The fire had destroyed our buckets and bowls. We'd buried our food and pot underground, but everything else was gone. I suggested we dam the creek to make 2 small pools for everyone to use. Nobody argued. The wounded washed first, then the women. We all stripped down and scrubbed ourselves in the creek. No one cared about modesty at that point. Back at camp, I started preparing food when I heard a woman begging the officers for medicine. Her husband's arm had been torn open by a wild animal, a huge chunk of flesh ripped away. Others had bad burns and crush injuries. Chao had some wound medicine, but barely enough for his own men. Sharing it meant choosing who got help and who didn't. He told everyone to eat something and promised to find a doctor when we reached the next town. But someone pointed out the road ahead was still burning. We might not reach any town for days. Then old Lady Zhang spoke up. "Are you all stupid? We have Yuan Shu right here. She knows medicine. Let her stabilize the wounds for now." Suddenly, everyone was looking at me. Burns, bite wounds, crushed limbs. There were a lot of injured people, officers included. I was honest with them. I know some methods, but we don't have enough herbs, and I can't make proper burn ointment without time and supplies. I listed what I needed. Do you? Huanglian, Huangbai, Huangqin, Huzhang, and poppy husks. I told everyone to check if they still had any herbs from earlier foraging trips. Then I went to look at the bite wounds. I had surgical thread in my space, but I couldn't explain where it came from. So, I came up with another idea. Fire therapy, I said. Everyone's faces went white when I explained it. Wangshi immediately mocked me, calling it made-up nonsense and accusing me of trying to scam people during a crisis. But before I could defend myself, Officer Chow jumped in excitedly. She's right. Why didn't I think of that? This method actually works. Fire therapy, basically pressing red-hot iron against a wound to seal the flesh shut and stop the bleeding. It sounds brutal, but even in my modern world, similar methods still exist. Officer Chow backed me up, saying he'd heard veterans from battlefields talk about using this exact technique when there was no time for proper treatment. I warned everyone it would hurt. The alternative was herbal poultices, but in this heat, open wounds would rot and fill with pus. They all chose the iron. After treating the bite wounds, I moved on to burns. Everyone pooled whatever herbs they had, and I found enough to make a basic remedy. While they were busy grinding the plants, I secretly added drops of spirit spring water. If I was going to help people, I might as well do it properly. The relief was immediate. It doesn't burn anymore, one man said, amazed. I smiled and reminded him I was charging for my services. No free rides, that's my policy. The G family scoffed. They had scratches and minor burns too, but they were too proud to ask. Then Wang and his team came back loaded down. The other wild pig, a whole deer, plus half-burned wild chickens and rabbits. Everyone who'd gone came back with armfuls of meat. The G family turned green with regret for not joining. Old Lady Lu scolded her eldest son for not volunteering. Then she sent someone to buy chicken from Old Lady Zhang, 10 coins for 2 big bowls. At least they weren't starving. Meanwhile, Yuanlin and Yunny cut fresh bamboo into sections. I showed them how to stuff the tubes with rice and meat, seal the ends, and roast them over the fire. Bamboo rice, we had only one pot, so I had to get creative. Officer Wang asked if he could learn the method. Their big pot had been trampled by animals and was useless, broken into flat pieces only good for making flatbread. I taught him gladly. I boiled one pig leg in the pot and planned to smoke cure the other, so it wouldn't spoil. When the bamboo rice was done, and we split the tubes open, the smell was incredible, smoky, meaty, with that sweet bamboo fragrance. The rice was golden and glistening with fat. Shursher's eyes sparkled. Sister-in-law, how do you know how to make everything? Big brother, marrying you was the luckiest thing he ever did. Yuanlin blew on his bamboo rice to cool it, then held it out to me. Wife, you eat first. Nobody talked about the fire or the assassins. When Chow asked about the mysterious fighters who'd appeared near us, I told him they were traveling bodyguards who happened to be passing through and took shelter with us. He bought it. After eating, everyone found shade and collapsed. Yuanlin patted his knee and waved me over. I felt embarrassed, but I was so exhausted. For the baby's sake, I couldn't be stubborn. I laid my head on his lap and fell asleep almost instantly. What I didn't know was that after I dozed off, he took my hand and laced our fingers together. By evening, the G family started having problems. Their wounds, the ones they'd been too proud to get treated, were itching, burning, and blistering. The scratches they'd just rinsed with creek water were getting worse. Then G Panner appeared in front of me, eyes downcast and pleading. Cousin-in-law, could you please look at grandmother's injuries? She's in too much pain to sleep. G Panner asked me to treat her grandmother's burns, without mentioning payment, of course.
Sure.
5 coins for the consultation. Medicine costs extra, I said, stretching lazily. Wangshi lost it. 5 coins? You're charging others 3. We're family, I smiled. You don't want to pay anything at all. You probably want me to throw in free medicine too, right? She tried the guilt angle, saying they'd lost everything in the fire, that we used to be family. My mother-in-law cut her off, telling me I was too tired and shouldn't bother with such small money. That was her kind way of telling the G family to get lost. They stomped off, calling me heartless and greedy. Old Lady Lu decided they'd just buy medicine from other exiles instead. They ended up spending 20 coins, more than what I'd have charged, and blamed me for that too. I didn't know and I didn't care. That night, Yuanlin slipped away after I fell asleep. He went to meet with the hidden guards, dropping his fool act completely. Shadow 9 reported that the assassins had been hired mercenaries who didn't know their employer. They'd originally planned a roadside ambush, but changed tactics when they saw the wildfire. Yuanlin took the information quietly, then came back and let me lean against his shoulder. The next morning we set off on foot, no more cart. Everyone carried their own bags. In the Ji family, the unfairness was getting worse. Wusher's 2 little daughters were bent nearly double under heavy loads, while Ji Bin's older sons carried almost nothing. When Ji Jun asked his mother to redistribute the weight, old Lady Lu exploded. Those money-losing girls eat so much but can't handle a little work. They should just die. Ji Bin piled on, mocking his brother for not having sons. The 2 little girls wiped their sweat and said quietly, "Mama, we're not tired." Wusher swallowed her tears. Then Ji Bin tried sidling up to Yuanlin, acting friendly, like nothing had ever happened between our families. He eyed our pig leg and clearly wanted help carrying his stuff. "Yuanlin, remember how your second uncle used to treat you so well?" Yuanlin tilted his head with that vacant look. "I don't remember, but it was probably bad." Then he rattled off everything. "When I was hurt, you stole my blanket and tried to take my cart. You tried to take advantage of my wife. When my brother got snake-bitten, you refused to lend us money. Your sons insulted my wife's reputation. You hit my mother. You demanded to cut family ties, then kept insulting us afterward. You're not relatives. You're enemies." "Right, wife." He turned to me with big puppy eyes, practically wagging an invisible tail, waiting for praise. I wanted to pat his head. "That's right," I nodded. "My wife was kind enough to treat your injuries anyway. Shouldn't you at least say thank you?" Ji Bin stood there speechless, then slunk away. "I gave Yuanlin my best good boy treatment." "Very good. They're bad people. Don't believe anything they say." Meanwhile, back in the capital, something delicious was happening. Remember those chamber pots and spittoons I'd stolen from the palace and hidden in the Qin family's secret storage? The imperial investigators had finally traced the stolen goods there. With no other suspects and the Qin family being politically useless at the moment, they became the perfect scapegoats. The Qin family got the same punishment we did. Assets seized, sentenced to exile in Lingnan.
What?
Our family's been raided? That's impossible. Music to my ears, honestly. I didn't know it at the time, but back in the capital, my little scheme with the palace chamber pots was paying off beautifully. Su Wanwan, my stepsister's body's original rival, woke up to soldiers surrounding the Qin family mansion. She couldn't believe it. Apparently, in her previous life, she'd been reborn and changed her fate by marrying into the Qin family instead of the Pei family. She thought she'd escaped the suffering.
Wrong.
The stolen palace items I'd planted in their storage had been found during the investigation. The emperor needed a scapegoat, and the Qin family, a declining military house with no real power left, was the perfect target. Their assets were seized, their homes stripped bare. Same punishment as ours. Exile to Lingnan. Su Wanwan's mother-in-law slapped her across the face and called her a jinx. The family blamed everything on her, said she'd brought the Pei family's bad luck with her since she was my stepsister's relative. Her brother-in-law, her sister-in-law, even her husband's grandmother, everyone piled on. She tried to be useful, suggesting they hide money and supplies before the raid. But the emperor had learned from the Pei family's case. Instead of waiting until morning, soldiers came that very night for a surprise raid. They caught the Qin family mid-preparation, hungry, unprepared, and dragged out of the capital before they'd even eaten dinner. The best part? Su Wanwan's own birth family, the Su household, was in the exile procession too. Her father wanted to kill her. Her mother's eyes were ice cold. Her little brother disowned her on the spot. Then the 2 mothers-in-law started fighting each other, clawing at faces and pulling hair until the guards whipped them apart. Su Wanwan, drawing on her experience from her previous life's exile, quickly bowed and scraped to calm the officers down. Her husband looked at her with disgust. She'd been reborn to avoid suffering and walked right into an even worse version of it. Meanwhile, I was out here eating bamboo rice and roasted wild boar, completely unaware of the chaos I'd caused. Sometimes revenge serves itself. I found Shadow 9 to get the details on those assassins. Turns out they were from a professional killer guild, basically mercenaries for hire. The government had tried to shut them down before, but never succeeded. I figured the guild probably survived because powerful people in court used them for dirty work they couldn't do openly. Shadow 9 gave me one of their tokens, a metal piece with a skull carved on it. I pocketed it. Might be useful later. Walking back, I got lost in thought about the original novel I'd transmigrated into. In the story, the heroine Su Wanwan had died on the exile road in her first life, bitten by a snake, her body torn apart by animals. She'd been reborn with a fortune and married into the Qin family instead, spending the whole book fighting her in-laws for power. As for me, the throwaway side character, I was supposed to die within a month of exile, attacked by bandits. The book had been terrible, honestly. I'd left a bad review before somehow waking up inside it. I was so deep in thought that I walked face first into Yuanlin's chest. Counting ants down there, he teased. I rubbed my forehead. Before I could say anything, he moved my hand away, gently rubbed the sore spot with his fingers, then leaned down and kissed my forehead. One kiss, and the pain goes away. My face went scorching hot. That line. It reminded me of our wedding night, when he'd said something similar. I was getting flustered by a man with a child's brain. Embarrassing. If anyone was going to do the flirting, it should be me. Before I could recover, Ji Xiaoying's sour voice cut in. Swooning over a fool? Haven't you ever seen a man before? My good mood vanished. I turned to her calmly. My standards are high. My husband is handsome and capable. Unlike yours, not good-looking and not useful either. Don't you find that unpleasant? She turned red. She knew I was talking about her arrangement with those guards. I pushed further. Actually, I understand your situation now. Tell you what, for one tael of silver, I'll give you a recipe. One dose, and a man can last half an hour. She hissed, shameless, and practically ran away, probably terrified I'd tell everyone her secret. Then I realized Yuanlin was standing right there. Had I just corrupted a man with a 6-year-old's mind? But maybe he didn't understand. Hopefully. Let's go, I said quickly. We're having grilled meat tonight. He grabbed my hand with his usual innocent grin. Big skewers. I want big ones. Holding hands in public wasn't common in ancient times, but I'm a modern woman. We're married. It's not illegal. Life's short, enjoy it. My mother-in-law and Sure exchanged knowing smiles while making stuffed buns. 2 whole pig legs meant meat at every meal. Not bad for exiles. The Ji family muttered about us being indecent. I ignored them and kept grilling my skewers. Tomorrow, we'd reach a county town. Chow had promised us a full day to rest, shop, and treat injuries. We'd lost a lot in the fire. 3 quilts ruined, our cart gone. My mother-in-law was upset, but I told her we'd sell some things in town, buy new bedding, and maybe even get another cart. Once you're out of the capital, the officers aren't so strict. As long as we stayed cooperative, a small request like that shouldn't be a problem. If I could, I'd have just bought 2 horse carriages and been done with it. But that would draw too much attention. The next morning, before I could talk to Chow about getting a cart, the Ji family beat me to it. Wu Shi suggested it, and all the other exiles jumped in asking for the same thing. Chow shut them down. Wang cracked his whip and reminded everyone they were criminals, not tourists. My mother-in-law whispered that it was lucky I hadn't spoken up, or I'd have been lumped in with them. But I had a different approach. I waited until everyone left, then went to Wang privately with a business idea. The officers could buy a few carts and rent them to the exiles for a small daily fee. The officers would make money, the exiles would be grateful, and nobody was breaking any rules. Wang's eyes lit up. He took it to Chow, who called me a born businesswoman and approved buying 3 or 4 carts in the next town. We reached the county town just before the gates closed. It was bustling and lively, a stark contrast to our filthy, exhausted group. Chow told Wang to find a cheap inn, but before that could happen, local constables appeared and directed us to stay at the county courthouse instead. Something fell off. Yuanlin noticed too. He'd caught a fat, wealthy-looking man on a restaurant balcony eyeing the women in our group with a greedy look. He quietly signaled Shadow 9. They locked us into jail cells by family. My mother-in-law sat on the bed, uneasy. My eye keeps twitching. Something's wrong. I told her not to worry, but I was on guard too. The local officers who'd escorted us in had unfriendly eyes. That evening, Chao and his men got invited out for food and drinks, conveniently separated from us. Then the local guards came to deliver dinner. Watery porridge, a bun, and some questionable meat bao. A guard stopped at our cell and pointed at me and Shirshir. "You two, come out. Orders." My mother-in-law immediately pushed us behind her. "Whatever you want, deal with me. Leave them alone." Yuanlin's eyes darkened. I could see him calculating escape routes. He'd been studying the courthouse layout since we arrived. The guard got rough, reaching for us. I stepped forward. "We'll go ourselves." I squeezed Shirshir's hand. I had my abilities and my supplies. I could protect us both. Better to find out what they wanted first. My mother-in-law's face crumbled as they locked the cell behind us. Yunny tried to reassure her. "Trust sister-in-law. She's tough. She knows medicine. They'll be fine." Once we stepped outside, they threw hoods over our heads and shoved us into a carriage. After about 15 minutes of riding, we stopped at the back entrance of some mansion. When they pulled the hoods off, Shirshir was shaking. "Sister-in-law, where are we? What do they want with us?" She'd heard the stories other exiles told about what happened to female prisoners on the road. Her voice trembled with the unspoken fear. I held her hand tighter. Whatever this was, nobody was touching her. Not while I was breathing. "Your lucky day has arrived," the guard said as they shoved us inside. Ji Xiaoying stepped out of another carriage, looking almost excited. "Don't be scared. This kind of opportunity doesn't come to just anyone." They pushed us into a room with a table of food, 2 large bathtubs, and burning incense. I recognized the scent immediately. It was meant to lower inhibitions. I secretly swapped it out with something harmless while pretending to be curious. Shirshir was on the verge of tears. "Sister-in-law, what do we do?" "Let's run." I squeezed her hand and whispered, "Our family is still locked up. We can't run. But remember, I know medicine. Nobody's touching us. Trust me." That calmed her enough to get into the bath. We told the servants to turn off the lights, that we'd wait in the dark for the honored guest. They didn't suspect anything. What could 2 helpless women do? The moment the door closed, I knocked Shirshir out with a needle and hid her in my storage space. Then I pried up a floorboard and sank into the ground. First stop, the county courthouse. I wrote a threatening message in red across the judge's plaque, smashed things up, started small fires, and left one of those skull tokens from the Assassin Guild. The guards panicked and ran to fetch the magistrate. The fat magistrate, who'd been getting ready to assault us, rushed back to deal with the attack, dragging his men with him. His son stayed behind, told to wait. The son went to Ji Xiaoying instead. She'd come willingly. While chaos erupted at the courthouse, I explored the magistrate's compound and found a cellar full of kidnapped girls. One looked familiar. Turned out she was the sister of a girl we'd rescued at the fake inn. These were all ordinary women, stolen and held for trafficking. This magistrate wasn't just corrupt, he was a slave trader. I told the girls help was coming, pretending I was the daughter of a powerful assassin boss who'd been grabbed by mistake. That way, even if some got recaptured, they'd have a story that might protect them. Then I knocked out the guards, freed the girls, and set more fires around the estate. While everyone scrambled to put out flames, I hit the treasury. For a small-town magistrate, this man had an absurd fortune: gold, silver, boxes of copper coins. Every last bit of it went into my storage space. Then I raided his study and took every document from his hidden compartments. Bribery records, trafficking contacts, evidence that could destroy him. I cleaned out the kitchen too. If I saw it and it had value, I took it. The whole operation took about 15 minutes. Back in the room, I pulled Shirshir out of my space and woke her up. "What happened?" she asked groggily, checking her clothes.
No idea.
We must have fainted from the incense. Sounds like something's going on outside. We opened the door just as the magistrate's son came running past, panicking about the empty study. He glanced at us suspiciously and checked the room, but found nothing unusual. Our shoes were clean, our faces confused. When the magistrate learned his treasury and study had been emptied, he nearly fainted. When his men told him they'd accidentally grabbed the daughter of a major assassin boss, his legs buckled. He immediately ordered the recaptured girls released, staging a fake rescue to clean his own reputation, and told his men to send us back. He'd lost his fortune, his blackmail files, and his nerve, all in one night. Dealing with 2 exile women was the last thing on his mind. Back at the jail, my mother-in-law grabbed us both, eyes brimming with tears. "Are you okay? Did anything happen?" We were perfectly fine. Better than fine, actually. My storage space was now stuffed with a corrupt magistrate's entire life savings. "Nothing happened," I told my mother-in-law. "Something went wrong at the mansion and they just sent us back." Sher was genuinely confused and couldn't explain much. I played dumb right along with her. Yuanlin quietly relaxed. He probably assumed his hidden guards had caused the commotion. In reality, Shadow 9's team had only noticed the fires and added to them. They hadn't done much else. The real chaos was all me. I pulled out a roast chicken-eyed, grabbed from the table on our way out, and we ate well that night in our cell. The guards assumed it was allowed and didn't stop us. Ji Xiaoying came back empty-handed from wherever she'd been taken. Her family glared at her. They'd been hoping she'd bring back money or favors. "You couldn't even charm an official? How useless are you?" She sat alone in the corner, swallowing her misery. The courthouse was in chaos all night, but found nothing. When Chao said we were leaving the next morning, nobody objected. Outside, I had Chao help me sell our extra pig leg for 2 taels of silver, then used the money to replace what we'd lost in the fire. Some injured exiles wanted burn ointment but found it too expensive in town, so they bought raw herbs and asked me to mix it for them later. After lunch, Chao moved us out quickly. He didn't want any more trouble in this town. A little way down the road, Wang stopped the group and announced the cart rental plan. 8 coins a day for a handcart, damage covered unless you broke it on purpose. 4 carts available. People grumbled about the price, but I immediately stepped up and paid 1 tael for the best one. My mother-in-law winced at the cost, but seeing the kids freed from their heavy packs made it worth every coin. 3 more carts rented out quickly. 1 went to a group of families sharing the cost, another to old lady Zhang, and a neighbor whose husband had been mauled by a tiger. The last one was almost grabbed by Ji Jun, who begged his mother to let them rent it. But old lady Lu refused to pay and told him to use his own hidden savings. While he and Wushi argued about fairness, another family snatched it. Now here's what made the Ji family seethe. Yuanlin pulled our cart with everything loaded on it, Yunny pushed from behind, and Sher, my mother-in-law, and I strolled alongside with practically nothing to carry. Like a casual afternoon walk. Wang Shi couldn't stand it. Look at her, hands free, not helping her own relatives. Heartless. We'd cut ties months ago, but apparently that only counted when it suited them. Old lady Lu tried a different angle. She started groaning about her aching back, then sighed loudly. Nothing beats having your own daughters around. Other people's children just never care about you. She was trying to guilt my mother-in-law into helping. I almost laughed. Moral blackmail only works if you have morals to begin with. My mother-in-law turned toward Lu with what I thought would be a sympathetic face. But instead she said sweetly, "Lady Lu, how can you be so selfish? You actually wish your married daughters were here suffering in exile with you? That's terrible." Old Lady Lu's own daughters had cut ties the moment trouble hit, wanting nothing to do with their mother. Sher twisted the knife. "Grandma Lu, didn't those 2 disown you immediately? They pretended they didn't have a mother anymore." Lu's face went from white to red. Then even quiet Wushi spoke up for once. "So in mother's heart, no matter how hard little aunt and I work, we'll never measure up to your real daughters." That hit home. The whole Ji family went silent. My little provocation worked perfectly. Wang Shi started feeling insecure about her own position in the Ji family. Wushi finally spoke up about how her parents had sent supplies but her daughters barely got any of it. Even Wang Shi admitted the two married Ji daughters hadn't bothered visiting when the family was exiled. Old Lady Lu sputtered and told everyone to shut up. Watching them tear each other apart made my mother-in-law's day. Cutting ties with that family was the smartest thing she ever did. The sun was brutal. Even under my straw hat, I felt dizzy and nauseous, the pregnancy making itself known again. Yuanlin noticed and offered to let me ride the cart. I refused at first, but sure, and my mother-in-law insisted. I'd been running myself ragged taking care of everyone, and they wanted me to rest. So I sat on the cart for a stretch. Of course, people had opinions. Some old woman started running her mouth about how I was lazy, using my husband like a mule, and how her son would slap sense into a wife like me. She and her son were exiles too. He gotten drunk and tried to assault some nobleman's daughter's maid. My mother-in-law shut her down smoothly. Talking like you actually have a daughter-in-law. If I met a mother-in-law like you, I'd slap her right across the face. I cracked my knuckles, just loud enough for the old woman to hear. She went silent instantly. My reputation as the crazy woman who'd beaten up 3G men was doing its job beautifully. Her son dragged her away, muttering, "Mom, why are you picking fights? Are you insane?" He was terrified of us. Apparently Yuanlin had nearly choked someone with his elbow recently when they'd said something rude. A crazy wife and a fool husband. Nobody wanted to mess with that combination. After a while I hopped off the cart and handed Yuanlin some honey water I'd made. The bees in my storage space had split into 3 hives and were producing honey now. He drank it down, sweat dripping along his jaw, looking unfairly handsome, even while exhausted. Yunny whined that he wanted some too. Sure yanked him back. "You don't deserve it. Get your own wife someday." She winked at me, and I blushed like an idiot. I gave everyone honey water anyway, then sat with Yuanlin against the cart to eat. I caught myself thinking I never imagined I'd be falling for a handsome fool in an ancient world. My brain must have a hole in it. But this feeling, it was kind of wonderful. I checked his pulse while we ate. The blood clot in his brain was dissolving faster now. My acupressure treatments were working. He rarely woke up from headaches anymore. Good progress. Meanwhile, Yuanlin was having his own quiet crisis. I could see him fidgeting with his water pouch, lost in thought. He was probably wondering, she seems to like me when I'm simple. What happens when I'm not? After another night camping outdoors, we reached a village the next evening. Everyone was excited. Hot water, shelter, a real rest. The injured especially needed it. But Chao hesitated at the village entrance, his expression troubled. Maybe we should just camp in the open instead. Something about this place made him uneasy. Chao was hesitant about entering the village. He'd heard it was cursed. Previous escort teams always skipped it and went to the next one. But most of us voted to stop. We were tired, injured, and it was already dark. The Ji family scoffed at the curse talk. Jibin said it was probably just rival villages spreading rumors. His own family used to tell customers that competing restaurants served rotten meat. Classic business tactics. The village chief was thrilled to have us. He charged half the usual fee and gave us 2 large, solid houses. Plenty of room for everyone. The villagers were friendly, but kept their distance, not wanting to seem too eager. Firewood was cheap. Everything seemed perfectly normal. The next morning, I noticed a thin layer of grit inside a bowl that Sure had already washed. Strange. Then the village chief came by to check on us. Mid-conversation, he suddenly grabbed his side and slid down against the wall in pain. His grandson, a boy Yunny's age, ran over with red eyes, begging to see a doctor because his stomach hurt so badly he couldn't sleep. Everyone panicked. The curse. Was it contagious? People started backing away. Some officers wanted to pack up and leave immediately. The poor chief started crying, apologizing, insisting it wasn't a curse and wouldn't affect outsiders. I stepped forward. "It's not a curse. Chief, I'm a doctor. May I check your pulse?" After examining him, I understood. It was kidney stones caused by the water. The village piped untreated mountain spring water straight down through bamboo for drinking. I explained it simply. The water contained minerals that built up inside the body over time, forming painful stones. They needed to filter and boil their water before drinking it. The chief was overwhelmed. I wrote out a prescription using affordable herbs, plantain, angelica root, gold coin grass, peach kernel, and soap thorn. Nothing expensive like the ginseng-heavy prescriptions the town doctor had given them that they could never afford. Actually, I added, I noticed these herbs growing wild near your village on our way in. The chief's eyes lit up, then dimmed. Could you teach us to identify them? No, forgive me. You're busy traveling. I felt a pang of sympathy. This village had real problems, and the water issue wasn't even the only one. Then Gooden rubbed his own stomach and pointed out that we'd been drinking untreated stream water too. Wang agreed. Maybe we should stock up on these herbs as a precaution. The exiles chimed in, offering to share whatever medicinal plants they'd gathered. Chao looked at me, then at the hopeful faces around him. Free medicine, goodwill from the villagers, and a chance to protect his own men. It was too good to turn down. Chao agreed to let us stay an extra hour so I could lead a group to gather herbs. Almost everyone wanted to come. The chance to learn free medicine was too good to pass up. The Ji family, naturally, couldn't be bothered. They figured they'd just watch someone else's haul later. The village chief sent his son to guide us into the mountains and told us to take whatever we needed, just leave the roots, so things could regrow. Within 15 minutes, I was already spotting useful plants. This is Wangbiu Lu Xing. Memorize what it looks like. And over here, gold coin grass. We've seen this before. I taught as I picked, secretly slipping root samples into my storage space to plant later. Then I heard that familiar chime in my head. My space had upgraded again. The herb seeds I'd planted from the imperial pharmacy had all sprouted overnight. Not just sprouted, but grown full leaves. The medicine field expanded by another 100 square meters. Pages of the Shinnon Classic lit up with new herb names, sand timer symbols floated everywhere, and best of all, every single medicine in the pharmacy section was now unlocked and usable. I even discovered the first floor examination room had opened up, with medical equipment inside. The door wouldn't open yet, probably needed another upgrade, but just knowing it was there thrilled me. My theory was confirmed. The more herb varieties I planted, the faster the space leveled up. I kept my excitement hidden and continued teaching everyone which plants to pick. The mountains here were rich with untouched herbs since the villagers had never known what to look for. We found most of what we needed for the kidney stone remedy, with only a few items to buy at a pharmacy later. Back at the village, Yuanlin had been standing at the entrance like a stone statue, watching the direction I'd left. Some village girls giggled about him from a distance. Even in rough peasant clothes, the man looked like nobility. Ji Heng wandered over and tried to stir trouble. "Cousin, I think I saw your wife's hairpin on the ground over there. Come help me look." Yuanlin knew it was a trap, obviously. But he played along, curious what Ji Heng was planning. Ji Heng led him near a spot covered with tall weeds. When Yuanlin got close to the edge, Ji Heng lunged to shove him, but Yuanlin sidestepped smoothly. Ji Heng couldn't stop his momentum and plunged straight into what the weeds had been hiding. The village cesspit. The stench hit like a wall. Ji Heng thrashed in the thick, disgusting muck, gagging and retching. I arrived back just in time to see it happen. Yuanlin was standing at the edge with his best startled fool expression, yelling, "Help! Someone fell in the toilet pit. He's going to drown." I rushed over, grabbed a gourd ladle from nearby, and offered it to Ji Heng. "Here, grab this. We'll pull you out." But somehow my hand kept slipping at the wrong moment, dunking him back under a few times. "Totally accidental, of course." "You're doing this on purpose," Ji Heng screamed, then immediately regretted opening his mouth as filth rushed in. He nearly passed out from the smell. The village chief's grandson confirmed what I'd already suspected. The second problem was parasites. Roundworms, specifically. The villagers had been washing their waste buckets at the same spots where they collected drinking water. Worm eggs got into the water, people drank it raw, and the parasites took root in their guts. Over time, it caused stomach pain, weight loss, and no appetite. In severe cases like this boy who'd fainted from the pain, it could actually kill. The chief was horrified. He immediately banned anyone from cleaning waste buckets near the water source. I had some deworming medicine with me. Actually, from my pharmacy space. Western medicine works fast, so I figured I'd knock out the worst of the worms quickly, then let the villagers follow up with herbal remedies they could brew themselves. I listed what they'd need: chinaberry root, Job's tears root, which they already had since they fed it to their pigs, and carpesium seeds, which they'd need to buy. When the families said they couldn't afford to pay, I told them 2 pounds of rice for 10 children's doses was enough. The chief gathered every child with serious symptoms. I checked each one's pulse, then went inside to prepare the medicine. Wang Shi, of course, had to open her mouth. You all just believe whatever she says? We're leaving soon. If something goes wrong, who are you going to blame? My mother-in-law snapped. She grabbed Wang Shi by the hair. You're trying to stop Shushu from saving children's lives? What kind of person are you? Before the fight could escalate, thunder cracked and hail started falling again. Chao looked at the sky and called it. We weren't going anywhere today. I told the families the medicine would take effect within half an hour. There'd be mild stomach cramps, then they'd need the toilet. Perfectly normal. The village's real tragedy became clear to me. They'd known some remedies, but never had complete prescriptions. Town pharmacists would fill prescriptions, but wouldn't share the formulas. The villagers couldn't identify herbs themselves, so they used incomplete medicine that barely worked. People died from the pain over the years, and outsiders decided the whole village was cursed. The chief brought us 2 chickens as thanks. The rain continued, so we stayed put. I offered to examine anyone in the village for free while we waited. My grandfather had always believed in healing without barriers, and honestly, I needed the practice to sharpen my own skills. Wang Shi piped up again, questioning whether the villagers' food was safe to eat since so many had parasites. The chief's face crumbled. I shut her down. Don't use your ignorance to hurt people's kindness. I already explained. Cook food thoroughly. Wash your hands before eating and after the toilet, and you'll be fine. We all eat the same grains. We all get sick sometimes. When you're sick, you take medicine. It's that simple. The village women glared at Wang Shi with open disgust. A heavy-set woman carrying eggs nearly attacked her. You're just jealous because nobody's offering you anything. After lunch, the rain stopped and the sun came out. Parents rushed over to thank me. The deworming medicine had worked. The children had expelled the parasites, their hard, swollen bellies had softened, and the pain was gone. Keep taking the herbal version for 3 to 5 more days, I told them. Then once every 6 months as prevention. When we left, the whole village gathered at the entrance to see us off. They pressed dried vegetables, bamboo shoots, garlic, and whatever they could spare onto our cart. My heart was full. Some jealous old woman in our group muttered about me wasting everyone's time just to line my own pockets. I didn't bother responding. The cart full of grateful villagers' gifts spoke for itself. The troublemaker was that old woman Go, the same one who'd called me a bossy wife before. She complained that I was wasting everyone's time by treating villagers and demanded a share of whatever I earned. Sure exploded. Hands on hips. She let loose. The hail stopped us, not my sister-in-law. She just used the downtime to help people. If your brain's broken, go eat dung instead of running your mouth. Watching this proper princess curse like a street fighter warmed my heart. Wang Shi chimed in, agreeing it seemed fair to share my earnings. Some people stayed quiet. They knew it was shameless, but wouldn't mind free stuff either. So I called their bluff. Sure, let's split everything. 100 people in our group, everyone gets a cut. That means I'll charge 100 coins per consultation going forward. Chao, you and the officers collect the money, I'll do the doctoring. I paused for dramatic effect. Oh, and if I accidentally kill a patient, you're all sharing responsibility for that too. Honestly, I'm so relieved. I only half-learned medicine from my grandmother, and I've been terrified of making a fatal mistake. Now that everyone's backing me up, I feel so much better. I grabbed Old Lady Go's hands with fake gratitude. Thank you so much for thinking of all of us. Her face went blank. Her son Zhao Hai saw Chao's warning glare and clamped his hand over his mother's mouth. She got hit by hail. She's delirious, talking nonsense. Old Lady Zhang piled on. Yuan Shu treats us for free half the time, uses her own spare time, and you want to cut? Your conscience is so rotten a dog wouldn't eat it. Everyone turned on the Go family fast. The math was simple. Getting a share of my earnings meant sharing liability when things went wrong. Nobody wanted that risk. And if they made me angry, I could charge them full price. Or worse, a doctor who held a grudge could do things nobody would ever trace. People started kicking and spitting at the mother and son. The convenience of scamming me suddenly looked very expensive. Zhao made it official in front of everyone. I was free to practice medicine during rest stops, but I was responsible for my own outcomes. Don't worry, I said sweetly. I have principles. I don't bother people who don't bother me. But if someone does, I let the silence hang. People shuddered. Old Lady Liu had been watching all this with calculating eyes. She pulled Ji Xiaoying aside and told her to go learn medicine from me. Bring the Ji sisters too. Free medical knowledge meant the Ji family could treat themselves and even make money. Ji Xiaoying hesitated. She knew how badly things stood between our families. Liu waved it off. No gracias for ver. Put on a nice face and try, Wangshe agreed. Having a daughter who was a doctor would be valuable in Lingnan. Ji Xiaoying reluctantly said she'd give it a shot. Meanwhile, far away, the second prince was losing his mind. His hired assassins, supposedly elite professionals, had been completely wiped out, and the Pei family walked away without a scratch. They're trained killers. How is this possible? His aide sweated through his clothes trying to explain. The assassins weren't prepared for the wildfire. The story going around was that a group of mountain bandits had been hunting down their own traders in the area, and the assassins got caught in the crossfire. My made-up cover story had traveled far enough to become the accepted truth. The killers' bodies were burned beyond recognition or eaten by animals. No suspicious evidence remained. My lie had held up perfectly. Meanwhile, the second prince was furious about wasting money on failed assassins. His aide suggested a new plan: disguise killers as bandits. Throughout history, countless people had died at bandits' hands. Nobody would question it. The prince loved the idea. I knew nothing about this. I was sitting on the cart with my eyes closed while Yuanlin pulled like a faithful ox. My mother-in-law walked alongside, steadying the cart and reminding him not to jostle me. She thought I was napping. I was actually inside my storage space, working like crazy. Every day I emptied the pharmacy shelves so they'd regenerate, tended the herb garden, weeding, harvesting, replanting, and fed the fish pond and the little farm. I'd hatched chicks, ducks, and geese from eggs, and the piglets I'd rescued from the fire were growing nicely. Then I heard that chime again. Another upgrade. The clinic's first-floor examination room fully opened. Some instruments now worked, though the advanced ones were still locked. The building was revealing itself floor by floor. Second floor, and 4 treatment hall and a dispensary. Third floor, a hospital ward with 30 double rooms and 20 singles, each with its own bathroom and bedding for summer and winter. The 8th floor was where I'd lived in my previous life, a fully renovated apartment. Everything was probably still there, maybe even on infinite refresh like the pharmacy. I just couldn't access it yet. My past life best friend must have really hooked me up with this system. I probably saved her life once or something. I opened my eyes to find the sun setting. My mother-in-law offered to let me sleep more, but I was refreshed. I handed out water and caught Yuanlin gazing at me with that pure, warm smile. My face heated up. After dinner, wild vegetable and cured meat soup with flatbread, Ji Xiaoying showed up with her 2 cousins. Sure and Yunyi immediately went hostile. Ji Xiaoying ignored them, holding some wilted greens and a small bag. She looked at Yuanlin longingly, then turned to me. Cousin-in-law, I'm actually here for you. I pointed at my own nose. Me? I'm not here. Come back another time. I turned away and poked at the yams I was roasting in the fire. Yuanlin watched me with an amused expression. Ji Xiaoying pushed on, apologizing for past offenses and flattering my medical skills. Then Ji Zhaodi jumped in, claiming they'd always dreamed of becoming doctors. We're family after all. Could you teach us a little medicine when you have time? Ji Xiaoying presented her gifts, 2 handfuls of wilted vegetables and a cloth bag of rice. I opened the bag. The rice was old, discolored, and crawling with weevils. Less than 2 pounds total. This was the tuition for learning a trade that could feed them for life. Sure, and Yunny were about to explode. But I was faster. I picked up the bag and the vegetables and smiled. Become my students? Sure. Ji Xiaoying's scalp tingled. That easy? The Ji sisters grabbed each other's hands, thrilled. In the distance, the Ji family smiled smugly. Then came the next second. I put the bag of wormy rice and wilted greens right back in Ji Xiaoying's hands. Take these back. As for tuition, this isn't nearly enough. How much do you want? 1,000 taels. In gold. Wang Shi practically exploded from the sidelines. That's robbery. She tried guilt-tripping me, saying a true healer should want to spread their knowledge, honor their grandmother's legacy. I almost laughed. I'd already died once. Flattery and guilt meant nothing to me. My grandmother taught me. It's a family art. I decide who learns it and what it costs. Period. Wang Shi pointed at me, sputtering. I told her if that finger didn't go down, I'd chop it off. She retracted it quickly. Old Lady Go piped up again, calling me heartless for charging families so much.
You smiled here.
You're so generous and kind. Why don't you pay their tuition for them? That's none of my business. Exactly. So shut up. Or would you like me to brew you a free potion that'll make you permanently mute? I'll even waive the fee since you're such a good person. I stood up and started walking toward her. She screamed for the officers, claiming I was trying to murder her. Wang just sighed. She's clearly lost her mind. Ignore her. Her son Zhao Hai came back from relieving himself, saw the mess, and nearly fainted. He apologized, dragged his mother away, and hissed, "If you want to die, fine, but don't drag me down." I haven't even gotten married yet. I sat back down. Yuanlin had peeled a roasted yam for me. Golden and crispy on the outside, soft inside. Delicious. Sure, and Yunny stared at me with admiration. Sister-in-law is so fierce when she's angry. My mother-in-law chuckled. I used to worry you were too soft. Now I'm relieved. Being tough will keep you all safe. I wondered if my short fuse lately was a pregnancy thing. Hormones making me snappier than usual. The Ji family sulked and muttered behind our backs. Old Lady Lu blamed the girls for failing, and Ji Xiaoying snapped back, suggesting the Ji brothers try instead since the girls clearly couldn't handle it. Nobody volunteered. They all knew I'd beat them senseless. That night, Ji Xiaoying was woken by a pebble. Guard Yang Tao was signaling her. She slipped away to meet him. She played the victim, complaining about how I'd refused to teach her medicine. I wanted to learn so I could treat you and the other officers for free. Yang Tao wasn't stupid. He patted her shoulder and told her learning medicine wasn't like learning to cook. It took years. More importantly, I was the only doctor in the group, and Chao valued me. He wasn't about to make trouble on her behalf. He left her a boiled egg and 2 coins and walked away. But the other guard she was seeing, a dull fellow called Damao, fell for it completely. He promised to help her get back at me when the opportunity came. She sat alone in the dark, fixing her disheveled clothes, chewing on bitterness. In her twisted mind, the only reason I wouldn't teach her was fear, afraid she'd surpass me and steal my spotlight. That girl would never understand that some people simply don't deserve what they're asking for. Ji Xiaoying decided that if I wouldn't teach her, she'd just steal my knowledge by watching. She slunk back to camp with a scheming smile. On her way, she noticed her second brother Ji Hao sneaking back with his belt undone and a satisfied look. She knew what that meant but pretended not to see. The next day, Chao asked me to help prepare deworming medicine and kidney stone prevention herbs for the officers. I weighed everything out in front of them, showed them the steps, explained the order. Basic recipes like these weren't secrets worth guarding. Ji Xiaoying and a bunch of exiles crowded around, memorizing everything they could. Chao also wanted deworming doses for his men. Those village outhouses full of squirming parasites had traumatized everyone. I'd already secretly dosed my own family with better medicine, but I prepared a batch for the officers too. That evening, Chao sold bowls of the brew for 1 coin each. People lined up eagerly. Old Lady Lu grumbled that the officers should give it out free. Wang Shi shushed her before the guards heard. The next day on the road, Shi spotted red berries growing on thorny bushes along the path. "Can we eat those?" "Raspberries," I said, already salivating. sour and sweet. Lately I'd been craving that flavor, definitely a pregnancy thing. My space had ripe cherries and nearly ripe grapes, but I wanted everything. Sure gathered a whole apron full and brought them back proudly. They were perfect, thumb-sized, sun-ripened, no pesticides. Better than anything you'd find in stores back in my old world. Yuanlin watched me eating them quietly, memorizing which ones I liked. At the next rest stop, he volunteered to pick more for me. His wrists needed the exercise anyway, so I let him go. Ji Xiaoying saw her chance. She'd cooked up a new plan: seduce Yuanlin, wreck our marriage, and get close enough to steal my medical knowledge. 2 birds, 1 stone. She followed him to the berry bushes, acting sweet and helpless. When he turned to leave, she threw herself on the ground. "Oh no, I'm so dizzy. Help me up, cousin." She lay there looking fragile and beautiful, waiting for him to reach down so she could fall into his arms. If I saw them embracing, I'd get jealous and cause a scene. Then she could paint me as a possessive shrew. Yuanlin glanced over and saw me watching from the distance. His eyes flickered. He walked toward her. Then he stepped directly on her hand. "HHH," she screamed. He put on his best startled idiot face and ran straight to me, crashing into my arms, one hand perfectly protecting the raspberries, the other wrapping around my waist.
"Wife."
"There's a snake. A huge one." It screamed when I stepped on it. Ji Xiaoying stood up, cradling her hand, tears streaming, too furious to speak. When he crashed into me, he bumped my chest. I sucked in a breath. They'd been sore lately from the pregnancy changes. But looking down at this overgrown golden retriever of a man nuzzling against me, begging for protection with those big innocent eyes, I couldn't bring myself to push him away. I just patted his shoulder. There. You're safe now. Don't worry, you're safe, I told Yuanlin, patting his shoulder. Ji Xiaoying stormed over, clutching her hand. "Cousin, you hurt me just now." The way she said it was deliberately suggestive, like something scandalous had happened between them. I snorted. So much for ancient noble girls being modest and reserved. Yuanlin's face went pale, afraid I'd misunderstand. But I just laughed. "Oh, so that screaming snake my husband stepped on was you? Why were you lying in the grass anyway? Was the ground nice and cool?" Before she could defend herself, I kept going. "Lying in tall grass is dangerous, you know. Snakes, bugs, and the officers might mistake you for a rabbit and shoot you." Sure, and Yunny showed up right on time. Sister-in-law, I bet she was trying to scam brother, pretending to fall so she could demand money. My mother-in-law piled on too. "Yuanlin used to be so good to all you cousins, and now you try to take advantage of him because he's simple? Have you no shame?" Ji Xiaoying's hand was throbbing, her face burning with fury. "I just fell by accident." Yuanlin chimed in cheerfully. "And I stepped on you by accident." "Sorry." "There," I said. He apologized. "You're not going to hold a grudge against a fool, are you?" She huffed and stomped away. Once she was gone, Yuanlin held out his handful of raspberries, red and perfect, cupped in leaves.
"No roses, no diamonds, no fancy gifts."
Just wild fruit picked by a man pretending to be simple for a woman pretending not to care. "Wife, try them. If you want more, I'll go pick more." "Thanks," I said quietly, looking down at the berries. They were exactly the sweet-sour flavor I'd been craving. I reminded myself this was just dating. Casual. The kind where you could walk away anytime. Nothing serious. He went off to fetch water, scratching his head with that goofy smile. My mother-in-law watched him go, then came to me looking worried. "Shoo, Yuanlin seems even more foolish than before. Is his condition getting worse? Could you examine him again?" I was confused. I hadn't noticed any decline. If anything, he seemed more considerate lately. But I agreed to check. Sure pulled her mother aside after I left. "Mom, he's not getting dumber. He's getting clingy. He's jealous. He doesn't want anyone near sister-in-law." My mother-in-law blinked.
"Oh."
"Really?" She thought about it, then slapped her own forehead. I'm overthinking this, but I'd already taken her concerns seriously. After dinner, I sat Yuanlin down and took his pulse, using my ability to skin deeper. "Does your head still hurt?" Sometimes, he tapped his fist against his temple. The pain was still there but milder. He could ignore it now. I grabbed his arm. Stop hitting yourself, he looked at me with those big, dewy puppy eyes. I realized I probably looked like a bully from his angle. I let go and softened my tone. It's improving. I'll do acupressure on your head later, it'll speed things up. Whatever you say, wife. What I didn't know was that Su Wanwan's exile group was gaining on us. Their escort was brutal. Short breaks, relentless pace, whips for anyone who complained. Su Wanwan tried her feminine charms on the officers, but these weren't the reasonable guards from her previous life. They didn't care. Shut up. I don't need some woman telling me how to do my job. The lead officer cracked his whip near her face, sending gravel flying. She hid behind her husband. Chun Haojia apologized on her behalf and negotiated an extra 15-minute rest. That was all they got. She'd been reborn to avoid suffering and chosen a different path. Yet here she was, exiled, miserable, with guards who wouldn't bend, and a husband who was growing tired of cleaning up after her. Meanwhile, Su Wanwan's exile journey was going miserably. Her husband Chun Haojia, once a military officer who'd led men against bandits, now had to grovel before low-ranking guards. She played the perfect wife, wiping his sweat, handing him water, whispering encouragement. In her mind, she still had her trump card, knowledge of the future. She remembered hearing in her previous life about a brilliant general who rose to power in Lingnan, helped the third prince seize the throne, and became regent. She believed it was Ji Hung, her former ally from the Pei family exile. Her plan was to reach Lingnan, connect the Qin family with the Ji clan, and ride their success back to glory. Reborn, and knowing what was coming, that was her greatest advantage. Or so she thought. But her present reality was harsh. Her mother-in-law despised her. When she went to fetch water, the whole Qin family dumped their water containers on her. Her sister-in-law sneered. Don't like doing chores? Divorce my brother, and go back to the Su family. The Su family was even worse off. They blamed her entirely for their exile. Her brother refused to acknowledge her. Her father could barely look at her. Nobody sent them supplies or money. All their relatives had cut ties the moment trouble hit. She came back late from the well and got whipped by a guard. Her mother-in-law called her useless. Her own family watched without lifting a finger. I knew nothing about any of this. Our group had stopped by a stream for the evening. Everyone was busy cooking, washing clothes, gathering herbs. The mood was almost pleasant. I decided to cook the chicken the villagers had given us. We'd kept it alive for 2 days, but it was getting thin with nothing to feed it. Yunny boiled water, sure, and he plucked the feathers and I butchered it. While chopping the meat, I secretly added half a chicken for my storage space, cutting it into small pieces so nobody would notice the extra volume. Bamboo shoot chicken stew, plus enough meat set aside for stuffed buns. We sent a bowl to the officers as usual. Always good to maintain goodwill. Yunny was puzzled. That chicken looked small, but there's so much meat. Sure smacked his head. It's mostly bamboo shoots, dummy. Yuanlin fished out a chicken wing with trembling chopsticks and placed it in my bowl. Then he served everyone else before himself. My mother-in-law's eyes went red watching his hands shake, those hands that used to wield weapons with deadly precision. But at least he could hold chopsticks now. That was thanks to my treatments. She insisted on handling the buns herself and told me to eat more. You've gotten so thin, Shushu. Old lady, Lu couldn't help muttering from the Ji family's campfire about table manners and proper etiquette. My mother-in-law didn't even blink. We were exiles, lower than common peasants. Worrying about dinner table formality was absurd. After dinner, I sprinkled insect-repelling powder around our sleeping area and settled against a rock next to Yuanlin. I closed my eyes, and a moment later felt a gentle breeze brushing across my face. I opened my eyes and found Yuanlin fanning me with a woven fan, the gentle breeze brushing my face. His dark eyes were soft with concern. Did I wake you? He looked so genuinely sorry that my heart melted a little. I'm not that hot. Go to sleep, I said, patting the spot beside me. His eyes lit up as he sat down obediently. Then he carefully reached around and guided my head onto his shoulder. Lean here. I didn't resist. I nestled in, found a comfortable angle, and closed my eyes. He was harmless, a child inside, really. The person I didn't trust was myself. I was a grown woman with normal feelings, after all. He fell asleep content. My mother-in-law finished steaming the buns, saw all of us sleeping peacefully, and smiled before dozing off by the fire herself. Yunny took over the watch in the middle of the night without being asked. He understood his brother was recovering, and I was exhausted from keeping everyone alive and fed. The least he could do was let us rest. The next morning, while others gnawed on dry buns, we had chicken soup and meat-stuffed buns. Old Lady Go grumbled that we looked more like tourists than criminals. Her son clamped his hand over her mouth before she could finish. At the midday stop, I found wild taro plants and thorny aralia shoots growing near a stream, along with a huge Chinese tun tree full of tender young leaves. I sent Shir and Yunny to dig taro, while I gathered the greens. Shir winced at the thorns. "Sister-in-law, won't these stab our mouths?" "Trust me," I said. I also found a wild chicken nest, actually eggs for my storage space. I scattered a few extras nearby so other people would find some too, keeping suspicion low. I came back with over a dozen eggs, while everyone else found one or two. "Yuan Shu always has the best luck," people said. I shrugged and blamed my grandmother's accumulated good karma from practicing medicine. Ancient people believed that sort of thing without question. I cooked 3 dishes: cured meat with wild garlic, scrambled eggs with tun shoots, and cold-dressed aralia sprouts with salt and sauce. With a thick pot of corn porridge, it was another fantastic meal. Wangshur watched from the Ji family camp, mouth-watering. She had 2 eggs and some tun shoots too, and figured if I could cook it, so could she. The result was not the same. Bleg. "What is this garbage?" The entire Ji family spat it out, cursing and gagging. I smiled and said nothing. Tun shoots have a strong, particular flavor. You need to blanch them properly and know what you're doing. Wangshur had just tossed everything in a pan raw. She was furious, of course. "You did this on purpose. You said it was edible. You wanted us to waste our food." I kept making my scallion flatbread for the road, perfectly calm. She could scream all she wanted. I told everyone the flavor was unusual and not to force it if they didn't like it. Not my fault she couldn't cook. Wangshur was furious about wasting her 2 eggs on badly cooked tun shoots. The whole Ji family spat it out and blamed me for telling them it was edible. I flipped my flatbread calmly. "Your cooking is bad, and that's my fault." Shir backed me up instantly. "Did anyone hold your head down and force you to cook?" Sister-in-law warned everyone the flavor was unusual. Wangshur kept insisting I deliberately tricked them by making it look delicious. I shot back. "If a manure cart passes your door, do you grab a spoon and taste test it too?" She pointed her finger at me. I pulled a burning stick from the fire. "Want to keep going?" She grabbed her dishes and ran to the stream. All bark, 0 bite. But I figured I should protect myself from future blame, so I addressed everyone openly. "There are lots of wild plants out here that look similar. Don't just copy what I pick. Some things are poisonous if not prepared right. If you eat something on your own and get sick, that's not on me." My mother-in-law backed me up. I added, "And if anyone tries to blame me anyway, I'll handle it with my fists." Everyone got the message. The people who'd copied my foraging and failed just blamed their own cooking skills. Nobody else pulled a Wangshur. 2 months of walking now. Everyone looked worn down and haggard, except our family. We were tanned and our clothes were old, but we were healthy, well-fed, and energetic. Yunny had even grown taller. None of us had gotten sick once. Meanwhile, Su Wanwan was struggling badly. Her sister-in-law Chen Xiangmei cursed her cooking, half-burnt, half-raw flatbread that nobody could eat. Her brother-in-law complained too. Su Wanwan had never cooked in her life, and working with a makeshift stone stove with unpredictable fire wasn't exactly simple. Chun Haojia defended her. "She's trying her best. If you don't like it, cook it yourselves." Su Wanwan gazed at him adoringly. In her mind, he was her perfect husband, nothing like the useless Yuanlin she'd been married to in her previous life. She was convinced that once they reached Lingnan and connected with Ji Heng's future success, Haojia would become a great general and she'd be his glorious wife. She didn't realize she was being used. The Chen family dumped all the chores on her, criticized everything she did, and her husband only defended her just enough to keep her useful. not out of love. The last flatbread she made was snatched away by Chen Xiangmei for the eldest sister-in-law. Su Wanwan was left with nothing until Hao Jie gave her his half-eaten piece, not because he cared, but because he didn't want drama. She looked at him like he was her hero. She had no idea she was being controlled. That evening, our group camped by a river. I pulled out the wild taro we'd gathered and got to work. On the surface, I chopped it with a knife, but really I used the blender from my storage space to turn it into smooth paste. I boiled the taro liquid and prepared grass, ash water to set it. Yuanlin and Yunny came back from collecting firewood, and Yuanlin appeared in front of me with another handful of bright red raspberries cupped in his palms. Wife, we're back. He remembered I loved those berries. Every single time. Open up, I'll feed you, Yuanlin said, holding a raspberry to my lips. I paused for just a second, then ate it from his fingers. My lips brushed his hand, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Sweet, he asked.
Sweet, I said.
But honestly, he looked sweeter than any berry. Sure, and my mother-in-law came back with mountain yams and water celery. They stared at the pot where my taro mixture was cooking. That black lump turned into this. It's called konjac tofu. I'll teach you. I showed them every step, boiling, stirring, adding the grass ash water to set it, then letting it cool overnight for the best texture. For dinner I made yam and smoked rib soup, stir-fried celery with cured meat and corn rice. We didn't have enough to share with the officers this time, but later I cut some konjac blocks and brought them over as a gift. They were thrilled. Walking back with Sure, I found my mother-in-law pacing anxiously. Have you seen Yuanlin and Yunny? They disappeared while I was washing dishes. Sure wasn't worried. They're grown men, Mom. They'll be fine. But half an hour passed. It got dark. Then Wang came for the nightly head count and noticed 2 missing. Wang Shi immediately started shouting. Those brothers snuck off. I saw them heading toward the hills. They've been gone too long. They obviously abandoned their women and ran. She looked absolutely delighted. Sure went pale. If family members escaped, the rest could be executed as accomplices. Ji Hao piled on. If they weren't running, why didn't they tell the officers? Because the officers are busy. Do you report every time you fart? I snapped back. Chao mobilized his men and surrounded us. Wang Shi was practically dancing. Old Lady Lu clucked about, unfilial grandsons. Then a voice cut through the noise. Grandsons running away? Ji Hung and Ji Hao escaped. You're asking the officers to discipline them? Their parents aren't dead. Why aren't they handling it themselves? Yunny and Yuanlin stood nearby, looking utterly confused. Yunny had heard the whole thing and twisted the accusation perfectly back onto the Ji brothers. We're right here. Are you blind? I'd already sensed them returning with my ability, which is why I'd stayed calm. Chao's face went cold. Wang cracked his whip across Wang Shi's back. Stirring up trouble to use us against the Pei family? Next time bring proof. Wang Shi whimpered but kept arguing. They'd left without permission, hadn't they? But Yuanlin said calmly, we told the officer on duty before we left. Guard de Mao, Ji Xiaoying's secret ally, slapped his own forehead and stepped forward. They did tell me. I forgot to pass it along because I was in the outhouse. He'd actually been trying to help the Ji family, but now he had to cover for himself. Chao punished him with night watch duty and no supper. Fair enough. Yunny opened his cloth bundle. Wild cherries, bright red and thumb-sized. He offered some to the officers and sold a pouch to Wang for 3 coins. Yuanlin had a whole basket more. The sweet smell hit me before I could even see them properly. You 2 went into the mountains at dusk for fruit. My voice was sharper than I intended. Yunny shrank. It was still light when we left. And Big Brother is really strong. Yes, I'm very strong. Yuanlin grinned his fool's grin. I took a deep breath. I can't yell at the village idiot. Instead, I turned toward Wang Shi, who was trying to slink away. Spreading lies has consequences. I walked over and slapped her. 1 clean hit across the face. It wasn't elegant, but it felt amazing. No wonder villains in stories love doing this. She screamed and lunged at me, but my mother-in-law rolled up her sleeves, charged in, and slapped the other cheek. I want to rip your mouth apart, my mother-in-law screamed, grabbing Wang Shi. Gone was the elegant former princess. She was all mama bear now. The G-men tried to step in, but Wang came back swinging his whip. Want me to give you each a knife and let you hack at each other? Bunch of weaklings with big attitudes. I'm not cleaning up your bodies. That shut them down. They knew they couldn't beat me, and Yuanlin, even with ruined hands, could kick hard enough to terrify anyone. A fool fighting for his life was nobody's idea of fun. Back at camp, Yuanlin immediately brought me a bowl of cherries. Wife, try these. Even sweeter than raspberries. I ate one. It was sweet, but something about it burned. Yun explained through mouthfuls of cherries that they'd spotted the tree while gathering firewood. Yuanlin remembered I liked sweet sour fruit and wanted to surprise me. You went into the mountains at night for this. My voice was flat. Nighttime in the mountains meant wolves, tigers, snakes. We always camped in groups with fires burning and guards posted for exactly this reason.
Yep.
Have more. He was completely oblivious to the danger. I stood up. Come walk with me. He followed like a puppy sensing trouble, clutching his cherry bowl. Sure whispered behind us. I think sister-in-law is angry. My mother-in-law immediately grabbed Yunny's ear and twisted it for letting his simple brother drag him into danger. I walked Yuanlin far from camp without saying a word. He knew the storm was coming. Then he did something unexpected. He grabbed my hand, pulled me into his arms, and kissed my forehead. Don't be angry. I can protect myself and Yun. There was no danger. My face heated up, but I kept my stern expression. You don't get to decide what's dangerous. Don't do this again. I don't even like fruit that much. That was a lie. My storage space was full of ripe fruit. But he didn't need to know that. He took my hand gently. Everyone calls me a fool. But Yunny says I wasn't always this way. I'll get better, right? Yes, I said softly. His progress was real. He was getting sharper every day. Wife, I'll be so good to you. Trust me. Those words hit something deep. Before I knew what I was doing, I stood on my toes and kissed the corner of his mouth. I'm a modern woman. Why be shy? I'd already slept with this man and was secretly carrying his baby. One kiss was nothing. But he didn't let me pull away. He kissed me back, clumsily, earnestly. That's not how you do it, I murmured and put my arms around his shoulders. Let me show you. I wasn't exactly experienced either, but I'd read enough novels and watched enough dramas to have some idea. The kiss left us both breathless. My whole body tingled. If my best friend from my old life could see me now, she'd laugh herself sick. He held me close afterward, and I leaned against his chest, lips still burning. Was this what falling in love felt like? Was I wrong to let myself go like this? Maybe when his mind fully healed, he'd forget everything from this fool. Period. By then, I might already be gone with the baby. But right now, this handsome, devoted man was offering his whole heart. How could I refuse? Then things got awkward. While we were pressed together, I felt something hard against me and instinctively reached for it. What's in your pocket? The moment my hand landed, my face caught fire. That was not a pocket item. Yuanlin's eyes went wide. He immediately started clutching his head.
Ow.
I feel strange. I didn't mean to. I yanked my hand back, mortified. He kept going, pointing at his head, then lower. It hurts. I feel weird. I realized if he went back to camp complaining about this in front of everyone, I'd die of embarrassment. Just use your hand. Squeeze it yourself. Like this. I guided one finger to demonstrate the motion, keeping everything as clinical as possible. I don't understand. Can you teach me? I pinched the bridge of my nose.
Fine.
For the sake of that bowl of cherries, I'd help. But only this once. I'll show you. But you never, ever tell anyone about this. He nodded eagerly. I grabbed one finger and demonstrated the basic concept. Like this. Now, do it yourself. Got it. I grabbed the cherries and fled back to camp, not noticing the hungry look Yuanlin gave my retreating back. My head was spinning. Had I just corrupted an innocent man? No, we'd already been intimate before, even if he didn't remember. And I was a modern woman. Biology class covered way worse things than what just happened. I fell asleep against the cart. When Yuanlin settled in beside me, I kept my eyes closed. The next morning, I woke to something warm and soft on my lips. I opened my eyes to find him pulling back with that innocent smile. "Good morning, wife." I'd been kissed awake, like something out of a romance novel. He looked nervous, like a kid who'd stolen candy. "I brushed my teeth first. And I already boiled water for you." He'd gotten up early, started the fire, heated water, all on his own.
So earnest, so sweet.
Before my brain caught up, I tilted his chin up with my finger and kissed him back. Good boy. The rest of the family chose that exact moment to wake up. They'd definitely seen everything, but they all rubbed their eyes and pretended otherwise. I made breakfast. Hand-pulled noodles with minced konjac tofu, garlic, and cured meat as a topping, plus leftover yam rib soup. Hot and filling. I told everyone I needed the outhouse, but really, I went to dig up that cherry tree Yuanlin had found. It was sweet enough to deserve a spot in my storage space. The tree was farther than expected, outside my sensing range, but I got it. When I came back, the air between Yuanlin and me was different. Warmer. Electric. His eyes followed me with that soft gaze, and my heart fluttered every time. I was falling in love on an exile road. If I told anyone from my old life, they'd think I'd lost my mind. Ji Xiaoying watched us with sour jealousy. Ji Heng couldn't understand what I saw in a fool. Ji Xiaoying corrected him. You don't get it. A handsome man is pleasing to the eye. And sister-in-law said he's good-looking and useful. What woman could resist? That evening we reached an inn near sheep-grazing country. I treated the family to 4 bowls of lamb soup with rice, 30 coins total, plus free grain buns. The officers bought meals too and shared lamb broth with the exiles. While everyone ate, I snuck out disguised as a merchant and bought 2 pairs of sheep, picking pregnant ewes specifically. More livestock in my storage space meant closer to meat freedom. 2 days later, we reached a county town. As we queued to enter the gates, I noticed something suspicious. A well-dressed young woman fainted right next to my mother-in-law. At the same time, someone slipped something onto our cart. Yuanlin spotted it too and reached for the planted item, but I was faster. I'd already sensed what was happening. The woman woke up, felt her waist and purse, and started screaming. My money's gone. There's a thief. She pointed straight at my mother-in-law. It was you. You stole my banknotes. My mother-in-law stood firm. Don't you dare accuse me. I never touched you. A setup. Someone had planted stolen goods on our cart and staged the whole scene to frame us. The woman pointed at Yunyi next, swearing he'd bumped into her and stolen her money. She described every detail, which bank issued the notes, how much loose silver and copper she'd had. She dropped to her knees, sobbing about it being borrowed money for her parents' medicine. Before we could even defend ourselves, the local officers swarmed in, demanding to search us. Exile criminals with sticky fingers searched them. Chow rushed over and vouched for us. These people have been honest the entire journey. I can guarantee it, but the woman wouldn't budge. Then Wang Shi saw her chance and shouted the worst thing possible. She probably drugged the girl. She knows medicine. I could have strangled her. My medical knowledge, which had saved dozens of people, was now being used against me. The officers wanted to drag us to the courthouse. But I'd already hidden the planted evidence in my storage space the moment I'd spotted someone slipping it onto our cart. There was nothing to find. Why go to the courthouse? Search us right here, I said calmly. And if you find nothing, this woman gets 20 lashes for false accusation. That's the law, isn't it? The officers confirmed it was. The woman threatened back. Theft carried 50 lashes or even execution for large amounts. My mother-in-law squeezed my hand, terrified. But I had this under control. I don't trust your officers to search us. You might be working with her. Let the townspeople do it. I turned to the crowd of onlookers. You're strangers with no grudge against us. Would you help? Chow backed me up. Even he could see this setup was too deliberate. Random citizens searched us thoroughly, our bodies, our bags, every inch of the cart. Nothing. My coins were dusty and worn, clearly mine. I could account for every piece. The woman's face crumbled. She glanced at her accomplices in the crowd. They were baffled. They'd definitely planted 500 taels of banknotes in our bags. The money had simply vanished. Because it was sitting safely in my storage space. 20 lashes for false accusation, I said. Your turn. The officers had the woman beaten lightly, I noticed, but enough to hurt. Then they pulled Zhao aside and insisted our group stay in the county jail instead of an inn. For safety, they said. The exiles didn't mind free lodging. But I smelled trouble. That whole theft setup had been orchestrated. Someone with money and connections was targeting us specifically. It had been 2 weeks since the mountain fire. Our enemies were back. I whispered to my mother-in-law. She was already thinking the same thing. Should we run? Not yet. Follow my lead. What I didn't know was that the county magistrate was celebrating our arrival. He'd been paid to torment us. His aide mentioned that the Pei family women were beautiful and the Pei men handsome, though the fool wasn't to his taste. Bring the pretty ones to me, the magistrate ordered. Behind closed doors, who would know? Exiles had no rights. No one would dare complain. Once we were locked in our cell, I opened my bag and pulled out some pills. Everyone take one. Just in case, Yunny frowned. We're not sick. Why take medicine? I smiled. Sometimes being sick is the safest thing you can be. Yuanlin understood my plan immediately and swallowed the pill without hesitation. Hey, it's sweet. My mother-in-law trusted me too and took one. Then I explained. These were pills that would make everyone break out in red rashes. After what happened last time with Shur and me getting dragged away, I wanted us to look too disgusting for anyone to touch. Since I was pregnant, I didn't take the pill myself. I just rubbed on a skin-irritating ointment that gave me the same blotchy appearance. Sure enough, within the hour everyone's skin turned red and bumpy. Shur's face swelled up like she'd been attacked by a swarm of mosquitoes.
It looked horrifying.
The only problem was Yunny. His skin went red, but no actual rashes appeared. When the jailer came to take us for questioning about the theft, he recoiled at the sight of us. We moaned and played weak. He decided to only take Yunny, the one who looked healthy. I grabbed Yunny's arm, whispered, "This'll hurt a little," and jabbed him with a needle. He immediately went pale, his eyes rolled back, and he started foaming at the mouth. I pretended to check his pulse with a helpless expression. Mother, my medical skills aren't good enough. I can't tell what's wrong. The jailer panicked and locked the door. He wasn't about to risk these crazy prisoners poisoning him too. The magistrate was annoyed, but still wanted to cause us trouble. His solution? Move us into a cell with condemned criminals, murderers and violent offenders awaiting execution. Let them do the dirty work. If anything happened, he'd blame overcrowding and careless guards. They shoved us into the new cell and locked the door. The jailer smirked. Get acquainted. Just don't kill anyone. A dozen huge, vicious men stared at us like wolves eyeing fresh meat. Shur trembled behind our mother-in-law. Yuanlin and Yunny tensed to fight, but I spoke first. Gentlemen, hold on. We're contagious. Look at us.
Touch us and you'll catch it. I paused.
Also, I'm a doctor. I can treat your injuries. Don't hurt us and I'll help you. They hesitated. These were men in pain, wounded, untreated, waiting to die. I offered them something no one else would. Relief. They could spend their remaining days in agony, or let me help and live comfortably until the end. They chose comfort. I treated their wounds and taught them pain relief techniques. In exchange, they agreed to put on a show, pretend they were tormenting us whenever guards checked. Shur watched me negotiate with wide, starry eyes. Sister-in-law is amazing. I want to marry her. Yuanlin's head snapped around. She's mine. Find your own. Yunny, now awake from my needle trick, nodded in agreement and got smacked on the back of the head for it. When footsteps approached, I hissed, "Act." We huddled in the corner, fake crying, while the criminals loomed over us menacingly. The spy peeked in, saw what he expected, and left satisfied. Once he was gone, I thanked the men sincerely. Even the most hardened criminals respond to genuine kindness and a pretty face. But inside, I was seething. Whoever arranged this was going to pay. I clutched my stomach and started wailing. My stomach. I need the outhouse now. Yuanlin panicked, not realizing I was faking. The other prisoners backed me up, yelling that I'd better not make a mess in their cell. The jailer grudgingly escorted me out. Inside the outhouse, I locked the door, entered my storage space, and pulled out my old backup phone. I recorded myself making stomach pain noises, mixed in some ridiculous sound effects, and set it to loop at timed intervals. Then I slipped underground and went to work. The sound effects from my phone played perfectly. The jailer backed away from the outhouse in disgust. Meanwhile, I was already underground, tunneling toward the magistrate's mansion. First things first, his treasury. If he had money to pay people to frame us, I'd take every last coin. His vault was even richer than the last corrupt officials, gold, silver, everything. I cleaned it out completely, boxes and all. A family of mice in the corner watched me with bulging eyes as I disappeared back into the ground. Next, his study. Documents, evidence of corruption, all useful. Into my space it went. Then I heard crying. A boy's voice, begging. I peeked through a torn window, and my blood boiled. Inside was a young teenager, younger than Yunny, on his knees while that disgusting magistrate in his half-open robes did unspeakable things. Using my ability to skin further, I found more boys locked in a hidden basement. All prisoners. All victims. This man wasn't just corrupt. He was a monster. I emptied his kitchen and grain stores, then got to work on the real plan. I tunneled from the condemned prisoners' cells into the magistrate's compound. Disguising myself in black, I popped up and shouted, "Boss, the tunnel's through. I'm here to get you out." The prisoners didn't need convincing. They poured through the tunnel and erupted into the magistrate's courtyard, causing absolute chaos. His guards screamed about a jailbreak. While everyone panicked, I dug another tunnel from where those kidnapped boys were held, leading straight to the street.
Run.
"Get out now and find your families." They scrambled to freedom. The magistrate couldn't openly search for them without revealing his crimes. I sealed the tunnels, returned to the outhouse, and stumbled out looking weak. Sorry for the wait. The jailer rushed me back just as alarms about the prison break erupted everywhere. Back in our cell, my family was frantic with worry. I'd been gone too long, but seeing me safe, they relaxed. The guards moved us to a secure cell. The Ji family saw our disheveled appearance and gloated. That was the last straw for my mother-in-law. She flew at Wangshi and slapped her twice across the face, then started clawing. "You nearly got us killed at the gate with your lies. I'll rip your mouth off." Wang cracked his whip from outside. No fighting. Other exiles separated them. Wangshi sobbed about her scratched face, but the Ji family only scolded my mother-in-law with words. Nobody dared physically confront her anymore.
She'd learn from me.
Good. The magistrate eventually regained consciousness after fainting and discovered his entire fortune was gone. Treasury, empty except for mouse droppings. Study, cleaned out. Kitchen and grain stores bare. He passed out again. The escaped prisoners who'd been recaptured cursed about the tunnel leading straight into the magistrate's yard. What idiot digs an escape route into the judge's house? I kept a straight face and pretended not to hear. By dawn, Chao's men were exhausted from the chaos. Since none of our group had actually escaped, and there was no evidence linking us to anything, the magistrate wanted us gone immediately. 1 hour to buy supplies, then you're out. Nobody runs. Each family sent one person shopping. Naturally, I volunteered for ours. But I had one more stop to make first. I went back to the magistrate's bedroom. He was alone, recovering from his fainting spell. I came up through the floorboards, jabbed him with a sedation needle, and pulled out my surgical scalpel. Some monsters don't deserve to keep certain parts of their body. The magistrate didn't even know what I'd done to him until he woke up. By then, we were already walking out the city gates. Behind us, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the mansion. "MYHHH." His servants found him soaked in blood from the waist down. They rushed for a doctor, but it was too late. This man who'd been abusing kidnapped boys would never father children. He'd never hurt anyone that way again. The freed boys had already started talking. Word spread through the town about what the magistrate had really been doing behind closed doors. People connected it to the prison break. A group of righteous heroes must have discovered his crimes and taken action. Our hidden guards had stirred up enough chaos during the night to make that story stick perfectly. At midday, we stopped at a roadside tea stand. I noticed a group of well-dressed travelers. Their leader was a dignified middle-aged man with an air of authority. Yuanlin recognized him too, his eyes flickered with surprise. The man stared at our family for a long moment, looking like he wanted to say something. But his aide cleared his throat and reminded him they needed to leave. The man sighed deeply and climbed into his carriage. Other travelers identified him as Lord Gongsun, an imperial inspector returning to the capital. He was known as incorruptible, practically the emperor's former teacher, and carried a sword gifted by the previous emperor with authority to punish corrupt officials. Shershur almost blurted out his connection to our family, but my mother-in-law clamped a hand over her mouth. Drawing attention to that relationship could endanger him. I had an idea. 2 corrupt magistrates' worth of evidence was sitting in my storage space. Why not put it to good use? I excused myself, changed into black clothes inside my space, and tunneled underground to intercept Lord Gongsun's carriage. His guards drew weapons when I appeared on the road. I didn't speak, just revealed a large chest behind me. Lord Gongsun, I've heard of your integrity. These documents may be useful to you. He ordered his guards to stand down. I bowed, dropped the chest, and vanished into the trees before anyone could follow. Inside were letters, banknotes, and detailed evidence of both magistrates' corruption. Let the emperor's own man clean house. The treasury needed filling after I'd robbed the palace, and dead corrupt officials couldn't hurt us anymore. Back at camp, my mother-in-law fussed about my frequent bathroom trips. I blamed the jail food. I helped patch up some injured officers, and Ji Xiaoying tagged along pretending to assist, really just trying to learn medicine by watching. I let her. She wasn't getting anything useful from bandage wrapping. That evening, I slipped into my storage space. More herbs had matured, triggering another upgrade. This time, the examination room's ultrasound machine and heart monitor came online. I lay down and ran the ultrasound on myself. When the image appeared on the screen, my hand started shaking. 2 shapes. 2 separate sacs. No way. My eyes must be playing tricks. I'd been sensing 2 distinct blood flow areas in my belly with my ability for days, but I told myself it was nothing. Now, the printout was right there in my hands. 2 babies, clear as day. Twins. I thought about that dream I'd had, 2 children calling me Mama. Could it be a boy and a girl? I pressed the printout against my chest, overwhelmed with joy and terror at the same time. 2.5 months along, carrying twins, on an exile road through ancient China. No pressure. I stepped out of my space to find Yuanlin walking toward me with a big bowl of mulberries, each one carefully selected. Wife, try these. They're good. I popped one in my mouth. Sweet and tart, exactly what a pregnant woman needed. Who told you these were edible? Nobody. I just knew. Some instincts survive even brain damage, I suppose. Yunny already took some to the others. These are all for you. My heart warmed. My fool boyfriend was doing pretty well, actually. He looked at me with those eager puppy eyes. Wife, aren't you going to praise me? Then he pulled me into his arms. I let him. Inside, I was smiling so hard my face hurt, from the twins, from the berries, from this ridiculous, wonderful man who had no idea he was about to be a father of 2.
I didn't mind him holding me.
If he wanted to be close, why not?
He pointed at his cheek.
Wife, kiss me. That's my reward. Ancient people were supposed to be reserved and modest, but apparently brain damage removed all shame. He even pulled the Uncle Dazhuang's wife does it excuse again.
Fine.
1 kiss wouldn't kill me. I stood on my toes to peck his cheek, but he tilted his head at the last second, so our lips met. Then he did exactly what I taught him last time, and did it well.
Too well.
My knees went weak. When I finally pulled back, dazed and leaning against his chest, he looked at me with those innocent eyes. Wife, wasn't I a good learner? Annoyingly good. I mumbled something about him being okay, and practically ran back to camp, eating mulberries to hide my burning face. He followed obediently, smart enough not to push his luck twice. Over the next few days, I quietly adjusted my diet for the pregnancy, avoiding certain foods and blaming it on personal taste. The morning sickness still hit sometimes, but I disguised it as hiccups. Nobody suspected. The weather turned brutal. Scorching sun, No rain, everything parched. This whole region had been in drought since last year. I recognized the warning signs. This kind of weather could lead to floods, earthquakes, or worse. The original novel had mentioned disasters, but the author had been vague about timing. I silently cursed that lazy writer for not providing useful details. The spirit spring water was keeping the Pei family strong. We could walk for an hour straight without getting winded. Other exiles had grown thin and haggard. The Ji family looked like wilted vegetables, all their former arrogance completely drained away. Then someone screamed up ahead. A woman named Ah Fong had collapsed. Her husband, Hu Lin, called for me in a panic, saying she hadn't eaten breakfast and must have fainted from hunger. I checked her pulse and smiled. Congratulations. She's pregnant, about a month along. You're going to be a father. Everyone started offering well wishes. But Hu Lin's face didn't show joy. It showed shock, and then rage. He slapped his unconscious wife so hard she woke up. People were confused at first. One man joked, "So excited you forgot to pinch yourself instead." Then Hu Lin started screaming. "Who's the father?
Tell me.
Who have you been sleeping with? You shameless woman." The crowd went silent. It clicked for me instantly. Hu Lin explained through gritted teeth that years of heavy drinking and an old injury had left him sterile. A doctor had confirmed it. He could never father children. This baby wasn't his. This wasn't even the first time. The reason they'd been exiled in the first place was because he discovered his existing children weren't his either. He'd beaten his wife's lover half to death and hurt the children too. Both husband and wife were sentenced to exile, and now she was pregnant again. On the exile road, I noticed Ji Hao's face had gone chalk white. He was shrinking behind his father, trying to make himself invisible. I remembered his loose belt and satisfied smile from that night Ji Xiaoying had spotted him sneaking back to camp. This was going to be one massive scandal. Ah Fong couldn't believe it. "Are you sure I'm pregnant?" "I had my period just recently." I explained calmly that sometimes early pregnancy causes spotting from old blood, which can be mistaken for a period. The baby's pulse was strong. If they didn't trust me, they could find another doctor in the next town. Hu Lin barely held himself together on the road. Ah Fong kept denying everything, but her eyes kept darting toward the Ji family. I noticed, and I had a pretty good idea, who the father was. When we reached a town that evening, they called a real doctor. He confirmed it. Pregnant, about a month along. Same diagnosis I'd given. Hu Lin exploded. He chased Ah Fong around the inn, knocking into tables. The innkeeper panicked about his teapots. The officers told them to sort it out themselves but warned against killing anyone. Some exiles made jokes. "Look on the bright side. The kid's not yours, but the wife is." Hu Lin wasn't laughing. He demanded she get rid of the baby. She refused. She'd already lost her other children and her husband was sterile. This might be her only chance at having someone to care for her in old age. Finally, cornered and desperate, Ah Fong ignored the frantic eye signals Ji Hao was sending her and shouted his name for everyone to hear.
Yi Hao.
"Are you going to stand there and watch me get beaten? Don't you care about me and our child?" Dead silence. Every head turned toward the Ji family.
Yi Hao crumbled instantly.
He dropped to his knees.
"I'm sorry."
I was wrong, but he didn't move to protect her. Not one step. Wang Shi launched into attack mode, calling Ah Fong shameless and accusing her of seducing her innocent son. She even questioned whether the baby was really Ji Hao's. Maybe it belonged to some other man. I noticed Ji Bin quietly exhale with relief when only Ji Hao was named. Interesting. Made me wonder if the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Ah Fong had nothing left to lose. Her reputation was already destroyed. She fired back. "It's definitely your son's baby. If you don't believe me, we'll do a blood paternity test when it's born. And then I'll report him for forcing himself on me. Want to see him in prison?" I sat in the corner eating my dinner, thoroughly entertained. Then something unexpected happened. Hu Lin's rage evaporated.
Just like that.
He smiled. "Oh, so that's how it is. You should have told me sooner." Everyone froze. He'd been screaming about murder 2 minutes ago. Wife. Good taste. From now on, Brother Ji Hao and I are like family. You belong to both of us, and I won't fight over the kid. He paused dramatically. But I have one small condition for the Ji family. Now I understood. This man wasn't heartbroken, he was running a shakedown. 50 copper coins a month for child support, plus 1 meal a day for my wife. Surely that's not too much for the prestigious Ji family. Wang Shi nearly had a stroke. 50 coins? Why don't you just rob us? Ah Fong crossed her arms. It's your grandchild. Paying up is the least you can do. Ji Bin, sweating suspiciously, urged his mother to agree. The child is innocent. If this becomes a bigger scandal, it'll hurt Ji Hao's reputation even more. Old Lady Lu waved her hand, exhausted.
Fine, fine.
Let's discuss this in private. The two families went upstairs to negotiate, leaving the rest of us staring. Shir slapped her own cheeks. I have never in my life seen anything like this. Honestly, neither had I. A husband pimping out his wife's affair for monthly payments, the mistress blackmailing the lover's family, and the Ji clan once again proving they were the gift that kept on giving. I popped another mulberry in my mouth. This Exile Road was better entertainment than any novel I'd ever read, including the terrible one I'd transmigrated into. My mother-in-law summed it up perfectly. One willing to hit, one willing to take it. What she really meant was that shameless people are unstoppable. But it wasn't our business, so we kept quiet. The Ji family accepted Ah Fong and her baby as a temporary arrangement. They were terrified she'd report Ji Hao to the authorities if they refused. Old Lady Lu saw a silver lining. More people meant a bigger Ji family presence, and Hulin was actually decent at hunting. But I caught the undertone in her words. Accidents happen on a long journey, she said. Everyone in the Ji family understood what that meant. What I didn't expect was that Ji Xiaoying had her own crisis brewing. When the lamb soup arrived at the inn, she looked nauseous. She'd realized her period was late too. She snuck out to see a doctor and came back looking like she'd seen a ghost. She was pregnant. By Yang Tao or Demao. She didn't even know which one. That night, she told Yang Tao. His face went hard instantly. Get rid of it. If this comes out, we lose our positions. I'm not marrying you. He came back later with medicine and watched her drink every drop. Said a few comforting words, then left. She sat alone in the dark, crying. I sensed all of this through my ability, but it wasn't my problem. As long as they didn't bother me, they could self-destruct all they wanted. The next day, Ah Fong proved she was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She brought her food over to me with 2 copper coins and asked me to check if it was safe for a pregnant woman to eat. She was basically asking me to test it for poison, right in front of the Ji family. Brilliant move. The Ji family couldn't tamper with her food if I was inspecting every meal. I agreed happily. Not for the money, for the joy of watching the Ji family's faces twist with frustration. They'd been planning something, and Ah Fong had shut it down in one move. Wang Shi's jaw clenched so tight, I thought her teeth would crack. They'd been testing the waters for sabotage, and now that door was slammed shut. Yuanlin seemed lost in thought at one point. I caught him glancing at my stomach with a strange expression, maybe connecting dots between our wedding night and the possibility of pregnancy. But then he seemed to remember I'd been having my period and shook off the thought. If only he knew I was carrying his twins. Meanwhile, Ji Xiaoying was deteriorating. De Mao brought her the abortion medicine Yang Tao had arranged. The poor fool actually cared about her. He was an orphan who would have married her and raised the child. But the timing was impossible. If their commanding officers found out, both guards would be stripped of their positions and punished. Ji Xiaoying cried as she swallowed the powder, dose by dose. The stomach cramps started soon after. That night, while everyone camped outdoors, Ji Hao was walking past some bushes when a bloody hand reached out and grabbed at him. His scream pierced the darkness. Ghost! There's a ghost! It was Ji Xiaoying, collapsed in the grass, hemorrhaging, too weak to call for help. Ji Xiaoying collapsed in the grass, bleeding heavily. Ji Hao found her first and screamed about ghosts before realizing it was his sister, soaked in blood from the waist down. Wang Shi figured it out immediately and panicked. Go get Yuan Shu. Now, Ji Xiaoying, even half-conscious, had the presence of mind to add, bring the officers too. She knew I might refuse to help without official pressure. I left dinner with Sure and followed the officers over. After checking her pulse, the answer was clear. She'd taken too much abortion medicine and was hemorrhaging badly. Wangshe looked like she might faint.
Who?
Who's the father? Ji Xiaoying pressed her lips together and said nothing. But she glanced toward where the officers were camped, a silent message to her family. The baby's father was one of the guards. Yang Tao and Mao were sweating somewhere in the background. Yang Tao had told the doctor to double the dose to make sure it worked. Now Ji Xiaoying was bleeding out because of it. The officers asked me to save her, offering 10 taels. I sighed and agreed. Refusing when officials asked directly would only create problems for me. I prepared herbal medicine and pulled out proper bleeding control medication from my pharmacy space. I told them to burn the bloody clothes and bury any blood on the ground with dirt. The smell would attract wolves in this forested area. Understood, they said, but I could tell nobody was really listening. They were too busy being mortified. First Ji Hao's affair, now Ji Xiaoying's secret pregnancy. The Ji family had never been so humiliated. Ah Fan couldn't resist needling them. You laughed at me for being loose, but at least I can name the father. Can you? Ji Xiaoying wanted to claw her face off, but was too weak to move. That night, Wangshe went to wash the bloody clothes at the creek, ignoring my explicit instruction to burn them. She dropped one piece in the grass on her way, and didn't notice. In the middle of the night, Yuanlin and I both woke at the same time. Wife, wolves. The howling was distant, but his hearing was sharp. Through my earth-sensing ability, I could feel them too, a whole pack over 2,000 meters out and closing fast. They'd found the blood. Wake up. Everyone wake up. Wolves are coming. Find a tree and climb it now. People looked around at the quiet darkness and scoffed. Wangshe was the loudest. You're making things up. Where are wolves? Her face went white a second later. She'd just remembered the missing bloody garment. I didn't waste time arguing. I found a large tree and shoved my family up, mother-in-law first, then Sure. Yuanlin helped from below, while Yanni scrambled up. Chao pressed his ear to the ground, listened for 3 seconds, and went pale.
She's right.
Wolf pack. Everyone up. Grab whatever weapon you can and protect yourselves. He made it clear. The officers' first priority was their own survival. They'd help others if they could, but this was every person for themselves. People scattered in panic. Ji Hao's legs gave out halfway up a tree, and he slid back down, crying for help. Ji Jun pushed his wife and daughters up first, then grabbed Ji Hao and dragged him to a different tree. Theirs was too small for more weight. The howling grew louder. Closer. From my perch in the treetop, I could see movement in the darkness. They're here. The first wolf burst from the darkness and went straight for the nearest person, a man halfway up a tree. It knocked him down and tore out his throat in seconds. It didn't even stop to eat, just licked the blood and moved to the next target. Climb. Everyone climb. Chao and Wang screamed, slashing at wolves with their swords while pushing people up trees.
But there were so many.
3 times our numbers, maybe more, with even more approaching from the distance. And they were organized. This wasn't random hunting. They had a leader. Some officer realized the blood on the ground came from that garment Wangshe had dropped. Is that what I think it is? You got us all killed. People cursed the Ji family from their branches. The wolves started doing something terrifying, stacking themselves to reach higher branches, even running up trunks with momentum. This pack had an experienced alpha directing them like a military commander. Chao called out grimly, "We're dealing with a veteran wolf king. This is bad." On our tree, Yuanlin tied a rope around his arm and the trunk, then used his legs to kick wolves away. Even with damaged hands, his inner strength made each kick devastating. Yunny fought with a stick. Sure and my mother-in-law climbed as high as they could and tied themselves to branches with hair ribbons, staying silent and still. 4 or 5 exiles had already been dragged away. The sounds of bones cracking under wolf jaws made everyone's skin crawl. Then Sure whispered, "Sister-in-law, look. What's that?" 2 tigers. Drawn by the blood and noise. And tigers could climb trees far better than wolves. One tiger circled our tree, then leapt onto a neighboring one and launched itself toward Shirshir. She closed her eyes in despair. I didn't hesitate. I pulled a hidden crossbow from my storage space, strapped it to my wrist, and fired at the tiger's head. It opened its mouth at that exact moment. The bolt went straight through its palate. The massive body crashed to the ground. Hold on tight, I screamed at Shirshir, then jabbed a stick at wolves clawing toward Yun. Yuanlin jumped down from the tree entirely. Using his legs, arms, and internal martial arts power, he started kicking wolves aside like ragdolls. His hands were actually recovering, but he couldn't let anyone see that yet. Wife, get back in the tree. I'll protect you all. The second tiger roared in grief over its fallen companion. But it sensed something dangerous about me. My plan ability was radiating outward. It backed up 3 steps, tried to drag the dead tiger away, failed, and fled into the darkness. The wolves weren't retreating though. There were too many, and the officers were running out of arrows. They drew swords for close combat. Yunny dropped down beside his brother. I read once that wolf packs follow their alpha. If we can make the Wolf King retreat, the whole pack will follow. But the Wolf King was hiding behind layers of its soldiers. Getting to it wouldn't be easy. Wife, watch out, Yuanlin shouted. A wolf lunged at me from behind. I could have dodged it. I'd sensed it coming. But Yuanlin threw himself between us first. I heard the sound of claws tearing through skin.
Blood.
His blood. He pushed me upright and went right back to fighting, blood running down his back. Never looking back. Get back up the tree. I'll handle this. Yunny nodded. Listen to big brother, sister-in-law. Go. Okay, I'll go back up, I told them. But instead of climbing, I slipped behind the tree and used my earth ability to drag the Wolf King underground. While I was at it, I pulled about 20 wolves into my storage space too. Honestly, killing the alpha seemed wasteful. These wolves were impressive fighters. I could raise them as guard animals. The Wolf King and its pack appeared in my storage space, looked around in total confusion, then started running in circles. Good luck figuring that one out, buddy. Without their leader, the wolf pack fell apart instantly. They lost all coordination, confused, panicked, directionless. Zhao and the officers surged forward with renewed energy. The hidden pay guards helped from the shadows too. The wolves grabbed what dead they could and retreated like a receding tide, leaving behind a dozen or so carcasses. They're gone. The wolves are gone. Everyone collapsed where they were, on branches, against trunks on the ground. The relief was overwhelming. The cost: 1 officer dead, 6 exiles killed, their bodies dragged away by the pack. Zhao was heartbroken but knew it could have been far worse.
Move. Now.
The blood will attract more predators. Before leaving, Zhao divided the spoils. The tiger I'd killed with my hidden crossbow went to us. I claimed Shirshir had gotten lucky with a sharp stick. We took 3 wolf carcasses too. The officers kept 15. Other families who'd fought got shares. The G family, who'd barely managed to fend wolves off their low branches, got 1. We loaded the tiger onto our cart and fashioned stretchers from branches for the wolves, then marched until sunrise. When Zhao finally called a rest, everyone dropped where they stood. I gave my family spirit spring water, then started boiling water for wound treatment. I called Yuanlin aside. Take off your shirt, he obeyed. Even disheveled and bloody, the man managed to look unfairly attractive while undressing. That thought lasted exactly 1 second, until I saw his back. A gash the length of my palm, deep enough to see torn flesh. The wound from protecting me against that wolf. I cleaned it with spirit water, applied medicine, bandaged it properly, and stuck sterile adhesive strips underneath the wrapping. I didn't use the fancy supplies on Yanni, too hard to explain where they came from. Next time, don't be so reckless. I can protect myself, I told him firmly. I had powers. I didn't need a fool throwing himself between me and danger. He was quiet for a moment. Then, wife, it really hurts. My irritation melted. Bad? Should I give you a painkiller? If you kiss it, the pain goes away. Those sly eyes. He was using his injuries to score points. I should have refused. But he looked at me with that pitiful, hopeful face, and my resolve crumbled. I leaned down and pecked his forehead quickly. At that exact moment, Wang's voice came from behind us. Yuan Shu, could you, oh. He immediately turned around. I could practically hear him thinking, what a devoted wife, caring for her fool husband so tenderly. I glared at Yuan Lin. He'd done this on purpose, then composed myself and turned to Wang. What do you need? He asked if I had extra wound medicine to sell. Several officers were badly hurt, and their supplies were running low. His tone was humble and sincere. He promised to repay me or buy replacements in the next town. Everyone was hurt worse than after the mountain fire. Wang came to me for medicine, and I gave him a mid-grade wound salve, not my best stuff. The high-quality medicine would raise too many questions about where I'd gotten it. Old Lady Lu saw me giving supplies to the officers and started complaining about me helping outsiders instead of family. I ignored her. When they finally asked me to treat Ji Bin's mangled leg, I quoted 10 tales. Lu screamed about robbery. Wang Shi tried guilt-tripping me with healer's compassion talk. I don't want gratitude. I want money. They refused to pay and said they'd buy medicine in the next town. Fine by me. What they didn't know was that Ji Xiaoying's amateur wound treatment, using unwashed herbs in unboiled water, would likely cause infection. But that wasn't my problem. We reached the county town just before the gates closed. The guards stared at our battered group and the wolf carcasses on our carts. They bought the wolves at 2 taels each. My tiger sold for 25 taels. Not bad for one night's terror. At the inn, Chow did his head count. 10 people dead total from the fire and wolves, out of over 100. He'd need to report the losses at the county office tomorrow. Then Yun noticed blood dripping from Yuan Lin's nose. It wouldn't stop, soaking through handkerchief after handkerchief. Sure panicked. I stayed calm. Get him inside. The fighting probably triggered something. Back in our room, I explained to my worried mother-in-law. The nosebleed was actually a good sign. The blood clot in his brain was dissolving. That's why his headaches had nearly disappeared over the past 2 weeks. He might even recover his memories eventually, I added quietly. Yuan Lin's eyes flickered at that. He knew something I didn't. His memories had actually returned on our wedding night, though it took the torture in the palace to fully clear his mind. He'd been faking this whole time. Sure grabbed Yanni's head and shook it with excitement. Did you hear that? Big brother might get better. My mother-in-law's eyes filled with tears. She rushed off to order a special dinner to celebrate, though to anyone watching, her red eyes just confirmed their assumption that Yuan Lin's condition was worsening. The Ji family smirked. Still broken. One burst of fighting, and he's bleeding everywhere. Useless. We booked 2 rooms, men and women separate. After preparing medicine for the brothers, I slipped into my storage space to check on my new pets. The Wolf King and its pack had been running in circles, exhausted, tongues hanging out like dogs. When I entered, the alpha sensed me and started to raise its head. I stepped on it with my embroidered shoe. Hey there, old wolf. How are you settling in? Inside my storage space, the wolves were exhausted from running in circles. The Wolf King tried to growl at me when I crouched down. I slapped it across the head. Growl again, and I'll take your head off. It felt the threat radiating from me. The fierce light in its eyes dimmed. Its tail started wagging stiffly. The mighty Wolf King had turned into a big, dopey dog. Behave. Don't touch my animals or my crops. Break the rules and you're dead. I grabbed its neck and made a throat-slitting gesture. It tucked its paws and lowered its head. Message received. These wolves would make excellent bodyguards. Unlike human guards who belong to the Pei family, wolves couldn't spill secrets. Perfect. Back in the real world, my mother-in-law had ordered a feast, chicken and pork ribs. We ate well. Afterward, I went to Yuan Lin's room to change his bandages. He was sitting on the bed with his shirt half open, patting the spot beside him. Wife, sit here. It looked like an invitation to do more than wound care. I kept my expression neutral and walked over. Let me see your injury. Then my foot caught on something and I fell straight into his chest. We tumbled onto the bed together. Me on top of him, palm pressed against his bare skin, feeling his heartbeat hammering under my hand. We stared at each other, faces inches apart. His arms held him up, so his wounded back didn't touch the mattress, which somehow made him look like the vulnerable one. Big brother, Yunny peered in the doorway, took one look, and slammed the door shut. My face burned. I scrambled upright, cleaned and rebandaged his wound professionally, and announced I was leaving. He caught my hand. When I looked back, he let go immediately, looking like an abandoned puppy afraid of being scolded. Wife, please don't ignore me. I'll be good. My heart clenched. I'm not ignoring you. Just stop being reckless. Protect yourself first before trying to save me. Mother said protecting your wife is a husband's duty. This earnest fool. I sighed. I know. Let go. I need to sleep. He released my hand reluctantly. Good night, wife. Downstairs, I found Shursher cornered by some drunk men at the inn. One was dangling a coin purse, trying to hire her as entertainment. I'm not a singer girl, Shursher said coldly, trying to leave. They blocked her path. Don't act high and mighty. You're just exiled trash. How much for a night with you two beauties? I grabbed the man's hand and crushed it with my ability-enhanced grip. He screamed. Wang appeared behind him with a blade on his shoulder. Shut your mouth, Wang said icily. The men's friends apologized and dragged them away. But they weren't done. Later, when I went to the outhouse alone, one of them tried to grab me from behind. I flipped him over my shoulder and snapped his wrist. The innkeeper happened to walk by, pleading for peace, so I let the man crawl away instead of finishing him off. The next day we moved on and stopped at a village for the night. The locals warned us that women had been disappearing from nearby villages. They told us not to go outside after dark. I stayed alert. In the middle of the night, I sensed someone creeping outside our door. A bamboo tube slid through the window crack into our room. Someone was trying to drug us in our sleep.